Welcome back to the channel. Today we will travel through the pages of What If Frame Deku Gained Powers to Change His Fate Part 7. The link to the story will be in the description below, and if you want an update of the current series, join the Discord. Now let's start. Chapter 19, Persona 5 Ost. Hymn of the Soul, congratulations are in order, Trickster. Your efforts have borne fruit. Izuku would have liked to sleep that night without being troubled by a trip to the Velvet Room. It had been a good day aside from the small encounter outside the bathroom at the hotel. The Phantom Thieves had officially become a team and would continue their heroics from the shadows starting tomorrow. A good night's sleep would have been nice. But not one to complain even in unwelcome circumstances, Izuku kept his thoughts to himself. To think that our master would give such praise, Justine said, looking at Izuku with hardly what he would call surprise. You better treasure this moment, inmate. I know I was betting a wimp like you wouldn't be able to get this far. Carolyn said, the volume of her voice causing Izuku to wince. Alright, thanks. Izuku mumbled, feeling uneasy under the gaze of the twins. You have encountered allies who share your aesthetics and have found a place for yourself in reality. But this, your rehabilitation can finally begin, Igor said, his words drawing a look of confusion on Izuku's face. But I thought you said I started my rehabilitation, whatever that is. The long-nosed man chuckled. Allow me to explain. This first battle you faced against a beast of lust was merely a test to see if you were capable of handling the trials to come. You have acquired special potential to be able to wield multiple personas and strengthen them through bonds. But you have only just begun to tap into the possibilities. You must hone and refine this power so that you may stand against the coming ruin. That is the rehabilitation cast upon you. Izuku thought over his next question carefully. As much as he would like to find out what the coming ruin was, he doubted that Igor or the twins would give him that information. Instead, he focused on what he could work on. How will I be able to get stronger, then? There are various ways to increasing your strength. Fighting shadows and gaining experience is one way. The fusion process that I taught you on your last visit is another. Carolyn smirked. Feel free to grovel in thanks, inmate. This is all possible thanks to our master's guidance. This may be presumptuous of us, but we have words of wisdom to share as well, Justine said this time. When you're out in reality, you better keep working on those relationships you've formed contracts with. Spending time with those contractors will lead to the cultivation of those relationships. I'm sure you've got tons of free time, inmate. Make sure you use it to spend time with those people. That is another source of power to help you overcome the ruin our master has mentioned. Looking back and forth between Justine and Carolyn, Izuku wished only one of them would explain this. Preferably Justine, considering her quiet disposition. Having the twins talk in tangent was a bit confusing. Thankfully, he had already settled the matter of the links in his mind. All that was left was to tell the others about this dream world and how this link came to be. That won't be easy, even with everything we've seen. Thanks to the contracts you've formed, your heart is steadily gaining the power of opposition. With that said, it would seem that you are off to a strong start with your rehabilitation. This is truly a joyous occasion. I shall grant you an ability befitting your newfound growth. Consider it a gift. May your devotion to your rehabilitation grow even deeper. I have high hopes of you. Smash. With Igor's last words, the world darkened and the familiar crack of chains snapped in his ear. Full confidant. Rank 3. With that, you can now possess more personas at once. I believe this will serve you well. Izuku heard a faint ringing of his alarm clock echoing around him. The time has come. Return to your brief moments of rest. Okay, but Izuku felt his eyes become heavy, sleep beginning to take him. Despite the complaints he had regarding their vague warnings and mysterious origins, Izuku felt nothing but gratitude toward the three. He wanted to express that, but the creeping exhaustion was making it difficult. I thank you. I really do appreciate the chance to fight and to be a hero. Izuku could barely make out the twins for much longer, but could have sworn he saw a small tinge of surprise on their faces. Makoto waited patiently by the principal's office, having been called by Kabayakawa during her free period. It was easy for the student council president to guess what the reason was. Now that school was back in session, there would be no end to the gossip about Kamoshida and his change of heart. Not to mention the supposed quirk that caused it. Makoto could hardly believe the actual truth behind the matter. Not to mention who the true culprits behind the change. Come in, Naijima-san. Hearing the principal's voice, Makoto exhaled a breath, standing from her seat in the lobby before walking inside Kabayakawa's office. The plump principal was sitting at his desk, fingers interlocked and a contemplative expression on his face. Yes, Principal Kabayakawa. Did you need me for something? Yes. As you're aware, Kamoshida-san has effectively retired. After the stunt that occurred before the break, he was taken into the custody by police of his own volition. Well, that's good to hear. Many were hurt by his actions, Makoto said, allowing her tone to sound somewhat pleased, even if she had known all of this beforehand. She might have disagreed with Izuku's decision to continue, but there was no doubting the good that came from stopping Kamoshida. Good isn't what I would call it. This fiasco is turning heads and making people question the ethics of our staff. Not to mention the many rumors spreading through the school about the culprits behind Kamoshida-sen's change, Kabayakawa huffed. That's all you care about? After everything he did? Makoto shouldn't have been surprised. She was the one to confirm that the fat principal was playing a part in covering up Kamoshida's abuse in the first place. Of course, Makoto kept those thoughts to herself. Like a good little girl, as usual. Someone orchestrated Kamoshida-san's sudden change of heart with a powerful quirk. I want to find this culprit as quickly as possible to silence all the rumors before they get out of hand. I'm sure these phantom thieves are nothing more than students using the guise to hide their true identities. Makoto did her best not to react to the principal's hypothesis. I'm going to do my part and have the staff pour through the student files to check for any quirks that might be responsible. As for you, I'd like for you to help by investigating the students more personally. This took Makoto off guard. Me? But I'm just a student, sir. Be that as it may, you're the student council president and one of our brightest students. I trust no one else to be able to get to the bottom of this faster than you. It would be much appreciated if you could help me weed out this problem. This will also make things easier for me to smooth over with the police and the media. A thought quickly came to Makoto. If the investigation into the thieves was left to her, then there really wouldn't be a problem. She could keep Kabayakawa off of Izuku and his friends' backs by feigning ignorance. It was strange that she suddenly found herself covering for Izuku after scolding him so harshly several days before, but she knew that this would be the best way to keep him out of trouble. I understand. I'll do what I can. Thank you, Naejima-san. I truly appreciate it. If you succeed, I would be more than happy to sign a letter of recommendation to any college of your choosing, Kabayakawa declared. Makoto couldn't stop her jaw from hanging out for a few moments. It was a generous offer. Thank you, Principal Kabayakawa. In truth, she couldn't help but feel a bit disappointed. That letter of recommendation was something she would never receive. Your actions at this school have been exemplary, Naejima-san. It speaks highly of your lineage considering both you and your sister's career, Kabayakawa continued, the mention of Sei causing Makoto to raise a brow in confusion. If I am not mistaken, she holds an admirable position at the public prosecutor's office. It wouldn't be far off to say that the actions you perform here reflect upon her as well, both good and irresponsible. Wouldn't you agree? Makoto's leather-gloved hand tightened into a fist. How dare he use my sister like this? I understand. As much as Makoto wanted to explode on the principal for his underhanded approach, she knew she couldn't. That would be more irresponsible than anything she could do by letting Izuku and his friends stay in the shadows. So she just closed her eyes and accepted the job with a weak nod. How wise. It's no wonder that you're the student council president, Kabayakawa chuckled with a smile. I would like for this matter to be settled quickly. Start as soon as possible, Naejima-san, so that we might be able to put all of this behind us. Yes, sir. I'll do what I can, Makoto said, her brow hardening as she fixed him with a resigned glare. To the principal it looked like she was ready to give it her all, but for Makoto it was truly an expression of her distaste. Regardless, she made no further comment on the matter, turning around and taking her leave. Opening the door, Makoto was mildly surprised to find two officers standing on the other side. Ah, officers. Do come in. Sorry if I made you wait. I just finished with my previous meeting, Kabayakawa said, ushering for the two men to enter. Makoto politely stepped to the side, allowing them to walk in before leaving herself. How can I help you today? As Makoto started to close the door behind her, she made out the faintest words from one of the officers. Do you have a handle on this situation? We might be in some hot water if you don't. Makoto raised a brow, closing the door completely but standing close to the edge to try and listen. It was hard to make out what they were saying as they spoke in nothing but hushed whispers. Despite that, she could hear the heat in their voices and was able to discern some of it for herself. We were the ones you paid us to keep. That bastard did all that. Our precinct will. Naejima-san. Makoto jumped, having put all of her attention into eavesdropping what she could on the conversation. Looking at the front desk of the office, Kabayakawa's secretary smiled. Is something wrong? Huh? Oh, no. Nothing at all. Makoto said as she paced towards the exit. Just a little bit distracted is all. If you'll excuse me. Makoto didn't bother to wait for the secretary's farewell, making it to the hall as swiftly as possible. What she heard the officers say drew more questions than answers. It wasn't intelligible enough for a definite answer, but putting what pieces together she had, Makoto came to a conclusion that made her tremble. If what I heard was true, then those officers were paid off. That means that someone did report Kamoshida. But Kabayakawa bribed them to keep quiet on the matter. Makoto stopped mid-stride, her hands wrinkling the fabric of her skirt. So even when someone tried to stop it the right way, it amounted to nothing. There are people who are afraid to speak up, or even when they do they're silenced. Makoto's chest ached as she recalled Izuku's words. Kobayakawa turning his back to the students was one thing, but the police officers were an entirely different beast. For those men to turn their backs on the suffering for a quick buck when their sworn duty was to protect civilians from harm, the very thought shook her to her core. Maybe Midori was right. The final bell could not have come any sooner for Izuku. Releasing a tense breath, he stood from his seat and moved for the door. Despite the break from Golden Week, the whispers and accusatory looks he received from the rest of class showed no sign of dying down. Combine that with the police officers he saw roaming the halls, the green-haired teen couldn't help but feel pensive. Just relax. They have no way of knowing how we did it. Just have to keep cool and go about my day as usual. Stepping down the stairs from the third floor, Izuku peered down the second-year hallway to see Anne and Ryuji bickering over something. Persona 5 asked. My homie, shut up. You're barely better than me. You're only good at English. Well, it's better than being bad at everything. What are you guys arguing about? Izuku asked as he approached the two, bringing them out of their mildly heated argument. Oh, hey man. Nothing important, just the fact that exams are coming up soon, Ryuji sighed in disdain, his foot tapping the ground incessantly. We've been so focused on the whole Kamoshida thing that I haven't studied for nothing. Oh, please. You wouldn't have studied even if everything was sunshine and rainbows, Anne teased, causing the faux blonde to flinch and hunch over. I'm inclined to agree with Lady Anne. You definitely would have slacked off, Morgana chuckled, poking his head out from Izuku's bag. Shut up. She doesn't need your help. Well, if you want I can help you study, Izuku offered, working up his confidence and smiling at Ryuji. Both of you, if you want. I might be a year behind, but I've taken some of the more advanced classes. Maybe I can help. Wait, for real? Ryuji blanched, his jaw hanging in amazement. I didn't know you were that smart. It's true. I've listened in on his classes and can attest to their difficulty, Morgana said, adding his 2 cents to the matter. And judging from the papers he gets back, his marks are remarkably high as well. That's great. You can help me out then. Anne cheered, crowding closer to Izuku in enthusiasm. The green-haired teen reddened with every step she took. She's so close. Hey. Don't just hog him for yourself. I need way more help than you do. Ryuji argued. This time he was the one who stepped forward, taking Izuku by the arm and yanking him closer. With his help, I'll be able to focus on looking for our next target. SHHH. Was Izuku, Anne and Morgana's immediate response, the platinum blonde reaching out and gripping his blazer. Could you be any louder? The last thing we need right now is to draw more attention to us. Anne hissed, shaking Ryuji roughly. Alright. Sorry. The last thing he needed was Anne throttling him. We should save talk about that stuff for when we're away from school, Izuku said, looking down and holding his chin. I don't think using the roof would be a good idea, either. If people see us meeting up there together a lot, they'll be even more suspicious than they are now. That's too bad. I kinda liked hanging out up there together, Ryuji said, lightly kicking the ground in his disappointment. Izuku's right. The roof of the school isn't safe anymore now that the cops are snooping around, said Morgana. From now on, it would likely be best to move our hideouts around. Sticking to one place for too long will probably bring unwanted attention as well. Let's save all that talk for after exams. I doubt we'll be doing much of that stuff until they're done, Anne suggested. Ryuji let out a discouraged grunt. I am not looking forward to that. Hey guys. The 3 students raised their heads to see Miss Hime coming down the hall while Morgana tucked himself away. How's it going? Ah, Miss Hime-senpai. Izuku greeted with a smile. Did you need something? Yeah, actually. I wanted to see if you guys had seen that Phantom Aficionado website yet. You know, the one dedicated to the Phantom Thieves of Hearts. Yeah, actually. Saw it just a couple days ago. It was cool to see how many people were thankful. To the thieves I mean. Ryuji said, quickly trying to correct himself. What about it? I'm the one who started it, Miss Hime declared with a proud grin, causing the 3 to widen their eyes in surprise. Before he could continue, Miss Hime quickly looked around the halls, leaning around the group as if to make sure the coast was clear. What are you doing, Miss Hime-senpai? Just making sure no one's listening, Miss Hime said, eyes narrowed suspiciously before smiling again. Okay, we should be fine. I just wanted to ask, but you guys are the Phantom Thieves, right? Izuku, Anne, and Ryuji immediately tensed up, shocked at being outed so quickly. Almost on instinct, Anne turned to Ryuji and punched him in the shoulder. Ow. Hey. I told you to keep a lid on it. Wait. It's not Sakamoto-kun's fault. Miss Hime quickly dismissed, scratching the back of his head sheepishly. I just pretty much guessed it. I was pretty close to this case and before you guys sent that letter, you were the only ones to stand up to Kamoshida. Remember? Oh, right, I guess you knew about that firsthand. Ryuji grumbled, rubbing his now sore shoulder. The platinum blonde gave an apologetic smile and scratched the back of her head. Don't worry, I'm not gonna tell anyone, Miss Hima reassured, giving a kind smile again. Considering that it would mean a lot of trouble for you guys, there's no way I'd let that out. Acts of vigilantism might not be high on the cops' priority list, but considering all the attention the school's getting from it, they'd have to make an arrest. Why yeah, that would be really bad for me, Izuku said, swallowing a lump in his throat. Kamoshida used me to do some terrible things. To all of you and a lot of other students. I won't say this really makes up for it, but I want to help you guys as much as I can. So please, if you need anything, let me know. Izuku smiled at Miss Hima's enthusiasm. This was a huge change in spirit from the downtrodden teen he met weeks ago. Okay. We'll be sure to do that. Thank you, Miss Hima-senpai. Great. Miss Hima smiled back, looking around the group expectantly. It might be a bit much to ask, but from the look of things the Phantom Thieves aren't going to stop, right? There are so many evil adults out there abusing power like Kamoshida is. I hope that the Phantom Thieves will keep helping out people who need saving from them too. That's why I put the site up. So that people can post their problems there too. Everyone's looking forward to seeing what they'll do next. Giving everyone a place to put their problems on, that is a great idea. You really thought this out, Miss Hima-senpai. Well, to be honest, it's not just me, I've actually got someone helping me build the site and maintaining it now, Miss Hima said, causing the three to look at him in confusion. They want to meet you guys soon too, but they need a bit more time. Say, on Sunday, do you think you guys could come and meet them? I know we should all be studying, but this is pretty important to them. They can't do it today or tomorrow because of some complications, but we promise not to take up too much of your time. Izuku looked at Ryuji and Anne in question, both shrugging neutrally. Looking back at Miss Hima, Izuku nodded. Okay. We'll come on Sunday and see your friend. Great. They'll be happy to hear that. I'll see you guys then, okay. Later. Miss Hima said, bidding farewell before jogging down the hallway. Well, that all happened, Ryuji stuffed his hands into his pockets. Think he'll actually keep quiet. He seemed okay for it. He was playing it cool as much as possible, Anne suggested, looking at Izuku. Plus with everything he said, he seemed genuine enough to me. How about you? Yeah, I think Miss Hima-senpai won't say anything. He seemed like a different person compared to how he was when we first met, Izuku said, smiling at his friends. I'll believe in him. Yeah, you're probably right. The guy seems pretty harmless, anyway, Ryuji agreed. Besides, having a forum where people can post their problems sounds unexpectedly useful. It'll give us more chances to make a name for ourselves in the future, Morgana suggested, drawing his teammates' attention. But I'll leave that explanation for later. Cryptic as always, Ryuji huffed, shaking his head. Anyway, I guess we don't gotta start studying just yet, right? We should get some downtime before this Sunday when we gotta work our butts off. I don't know, Ryuji, you might need all the help you can get as soon as possible, he winced as Anne chuckled. But you're right. I guess I don't mind hanging out for a bit. You two coming? I know can do. Izuku and I have some plans of our own. Sorry about that, Lady Anne, Morgana said, causing Izuku to tilt his head in question. What do you mean? We don't have any plans. Why yes we do. Now that we've established the Phantom Thieves, we have to make sure we have all the right equipment for our operations. And I have an idea for how we can fix that problem, Morgana said, giving a mischievous cat grin to the green-haired teen. Why do I suddenly feel nervous? Suit yourselves. Just try not to look too suspicious with whatever you're doing, Ryuji shrugged before looking at Anne. So, still want to do something? Sure. We should go to the underground mall. Anne suggested, swinging her arms back and forth at her sides in anticipation. I've been meaning to get some blouses lately, I just forgot during the break. What? Why are we automatically going to the mall? That's only fun for you. Oh, hush. I'll buy you food if that'll even things out. Ryuji opened his mouth but paused, debating the offer for a moment. Finally, he sighed and nodded. Alright, fine. But I get to choose where we eat. Deal. Anne grinned before looking at Izuku and Morgana. Well, guess we'll see you guys later. I've got some shopping to do. Better get your arms ready to carry some big bags, Ryuji. Hey. That wasn't part of the deal. But his words fell on deaf ears as Anne marched onward. Ryuji groaned in regret, slowly following after the twin-tailed blonde. See you guys later, heh. Looks like Ryuji's going to have a lot of fun carrying bags around all day, huh? Morgana chuckled in amusement. Yeah, but those two seem close now. I'm sure they'll end up having fun either way, Izuku smiled, watching his friends descend the stairs. Close. As if. It's not like she would, Morgana doubted before a stray thought made his ears droop. And no, no way. You don't think Lady Anne could fall for a monkey like that, do you? I don't know, Izuku muttered, a bead of sweat rolling down his cheek as the cat started to freak out. Shouldn't we focus on what you have planned? Huh? Oh, right, it's impossible anyways, so I should stop worrying, Morgana told himself, shaking his head. Back to business. Pull out your wallet and open it up. My wallet. Izuku repeated, fishing into his pocket and fishing out an All Might-themed leather wallet. Good. Now 2 cards back on the left fold. I think that's where you put it. Put what? Izuku asked before pulling at the thin card inside. Izuku immediately paled, eyes turning into dinner plates as he immediately remembered the name listed on the card. Oh, her, that's right. I'd say if anyone can give us the tools we need, it'll be her. Mei Hatsume. The train ride from Shibuya to Musatafu was nerve-wracking for Izuku. On one hand, he was actually going to see Yue up close for the first time. On the other, he was meeting with the eccentric girl who thought that people would be willing to test her inventions at risk of severe injury or death without compensation. As impressive as they are, Izuku knew that he wasn't really keen on risking life and limb over them. Once he arrived, Izuku couldn't help but marvel at the gates of Yue High School. Unlike most schools, the front gate was electronically monitored with reinforced doors a half-foot thick. They only opened in the presence of a UAID card and were locked shut by steel bars within it after all the students had left. The rest of the school was enclosed by a sweeping security wall that was nicknamed the UA Barrier. Constructed from the toughest materials money could buy, it was designed to keep out all but the most powerful of villains. The main building was structured in the shape of a huge H, with architectural glass, rather than brick or plaster. It towered above the gate, displaying its superiority as Japan's #1 hero training school for all to see. Talk about majestic, and this is just a school, Morgana asked, no less astonished by the campus than Izuku, now that he saw it up close. That's right, the school that some of the greatest heroes in the world attended, including All Might himself. Izuku answered, a wistful gleam visible in his eyes. I wonder if I ever had a chance of getting in to begin with. HELLO. An enthusiastic voice brought Izuku out of his thoughts, looking down at the school gates to see the eccentric engineer Mei walk through, waving as she approached with a staggering swiftness. Her outfit was nearly unchanged from the last time they met, aside from a couple of small additions to the bag on her back. My Hero Academia asked. Obstacle course, oh, hello Hatsume, I'm so glad you took my offer into consideration. Izuku barely had a chance to greet her before Mei closed the distance between them instantly. I know, you saw my babies in action once, and you just had to come back and see them up close for yourself. Well, you called me just in the nick of time, too. I was planning to test out one of my latest inventions myself tonight. But in answer to my prayers and hard work, I suddenly get a call from you. Mei took another quick step forward, Izuku flinching, as he took a step back in shock. Alright, but before that I wanted to thanks to you, my babies can be cared for properly without delay. I'll get data I need and won't risk injury to myself. Mei moved another step forward, forcing Izuku to take another trepid step back. So honest. Look, Hatsume-san, before we start we don't have time to waste. We need to get moving so we can start. I hope you're ready to take the punishment required to ensure my babies grow and mature like they're supposed to. Mei declared, quickly taking Izuku's wrist and pulling him along. Normally, Izuku would be having a panic attack, but Mei was dragging him along so quickly that he could barely process anything that was going on. Wait, where are we going? Shouldn't we be going to the school? Sadly, I can't test my newborns in any of the labs after a minor explosion one of my babies caused. But have no fear, Power Loader Sensei was kind enough to give me access to an off-campus garage he has for storing extra equipment. We'll be able to conduct all our tests there without problem. Izuku would be lying if he said he wasn't a little disappointed. It would have been nice to have a chance to walk across the campus for himself, even if only for a short time. Regardless, that wasn't the reason he came here. Oh, okay. You can lead. The Izuku suddenly realized that Mei was still towing him by the wrist, his face breaking out in a nervous sweat as his face reddened. He quickly pulled his arm away, causing the eccentric engineer to finally stop. Feel free to keep going. I'm right behind you, don't worry. Izuku said, trying to mask his fluster with feigned excitement. Mei blinked once before grinning. I see that the idea of seeing my babies again has filled you with anticipation as well. As you wish, try to keep up. Izuku breathed a sigh of relief, but that relief died when he realized that Mei had sped off without him. He had to sprint to catch the engineer before she vanished from his sight. Despite the long-running security wall of the school, Izuku and Mei didn't go far, arriving at a small row of vacant garages just to the side of the campus. Looking around, Izuku spotted a multitude of security cameras, alarms, and sirens. It may have been off campus, but it was undoubtedly safe. Over here. Garage 10. Mei called out, waving for Izuku to catch up. The green-haired teen quickly jogged over, watching as Mei pressed a card key against a scanner near one of the large metal containment doors. They slowly folded itself into the ceiling, revealing a storage space the size of the apartment Izuku and his mom lived in. What equipment was here was pressed against the walls of the garage in the back, leaving plenty of room on the center floor. Seeing the scorch marks on the ground, Izuku guessed that it was the usual spot that Mei used for testing her babies. I hope I don't end up as another scorch mark on the ground. Here we are. This is where the magic happens. The sheer volume of her voice made him jump. Today was an especially lucky day for me. I usually have to request to take equipment and building materials out a day beforehand. But thankfully, I had already made a request yesterday, so we can start immediately. Izuku squeaked out, eyes widening as large as plates as he snapped his neck back to look at her. Oh right, there were several things to discuss first. Starting off, I just want your reassurance that I will not be held legally responsible, no matter what bodily harm and/or damage befalls you. As if to push the point, Mei immediately brought up a paper and pen for Izuku to sign. Wait. Aren't we going to discuss how you're going to compensate me first? Izuku asked, holding up his hands as he suddenly found himself wanting some more time to decide on whether he would go through with this deal or not. Oh, of course. You did say that instead of being paid that you had another idea for how I can motivate you. Mei placed the paper and pen back in her pack before crossing her arms. Okay, lay it on me. How exactly can I help? Izuku let out a small breath, trying to steady his beating heart after all the excitement. So I was thinking that maybe in exchange for doing your tests, you would be willing to make me some devices I could use as well. Mei's ever-present grin turned to a frown as her crosshair eyes began to zoom in on Izuku. Oh, and what exactly would you plan to do with my babies if I did? And nothing bad, I swear. Izuku swallowed another lump in his throat as he remembered what he had rehearsed with Morgana. I hate to lie like this, but I don't have a choice. Her equipment could be really helpful in a palace. Why, you see, I go to another hero training school. I know that UA's facilities are the best and I thought I'd be able to get an edge if I went to you. What the support courses at my school showed me were nothing compared to what you have. It was a good thing he went home to change into his casual attire first, otherwise Mei would see through this lie immediately. Mei's confident smirk returned. I see you certainly know brilliance when you see it. She brought her face uncomfortably close to Izuku's, examining him like a bug under a microscope. But how do I know that you're not just trying to steal my babies to let my rivals dissect them? Which hero school do you go to? Ketsubutsu Academy High School. Oh. Ketsubutsu, eh? Mei backed away for a moment, tilting her chin up in thought. No one there particularly stood out to me, even among the second and third years. Mei shifted her gaze back to Izuku, the green-haired teen stiffening up. What's your quirk? Huh? This wasn't one of the questions he expected to hear. My quirk? Yes. If I do end up making some tools for you to use, I need to know your quirk so I can design my babies to work with it or around it. Mei explained, her tone unusually professional this time. My quirk, Izuku mumbled, hunching over as he suddenly found himself in a corner. Morgana kicked around in his backpack, likely feeling just as nervous as Izuku was. What do I say? I can't just make one up or she'll ask me to demonstrate. Think. What can I do? What can I? It hit him. Inside the velvet room, Igor had given him an ability just days before they went to steal Kamoshida's treasure. He had no idea if it worked outside of the cognitive world, but it was the only shot he had. I have something called a third eye, Izuku finally said, looking back up at Mei again. It helps me see in the dark, see things that normally can't be seen and reveals hidden objects, tracks, and booby traps. Izuku never got a clear explanation of his third eye, but said what he remembered doing with it. Oh, a sight-enhancing quirk like mine? Then interesting. There are only so many options to enhance a non-physical quirk, but that also means there are few things that could get in the way of it. The possibilities are endless. That's the other thing. Because my quirk can only help with what I can see, I need tools that can compensate for my lack of offensive capabilities. I use a wooden staff, but sometimes I feel like that isn't enough. I need something with stopping power that I can use alongside the rest of my equipment, Izuku explained, taking his knowledge of his close-range difficulties in the palace he had and using them to help his case. Mei stared at Izuku for a moment, closing the distance between them again. Izuku gulped, backing up enough so that she wasn't right in his face. Okay. Izuku blinked, feeling less nervous as he met Mei's gaze again. Really? You'll do it? I'll do it after you test out at least 3 of my babies first. Mei declared with an evil glint in her eyes. If you're determined to get the best babies possible for your training, then prove it to me. Help me get some data to work with. Well, that wasn't the outcome Izuku was looking for, it worked out all the same. If any of Mei's inventions were half as impressive as what she showed off in Shibuya, he had no doubt that he would come back to help her test out more equipment in the future anyways. Izuku brought his hands up in front of him and balled his fists, nodding with determination. I understand. I'll do what I have to. Let me test out your babies. Mei's eccentric grin returned, giving Izuku a thumbs up. Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. It'll be a pleasure to work with you, guinea pig I mean test subject. Why you let it slip again? Izuku exclaimed in fear before shaking his head. But anyway, my name is Izuku Midoriya. I look forward to working with you, Hitsumi-san. And it'll be a pleasure to use you for testing, Midoriya-kun. Mei laughed, extending an arm and gripping his hand to shake. Smash Izuku. The beginning of his new arcana caught him off guard. It had been some time since he formed a new bond. I am thou art I. Thou hast acquired a new vow. That shall become the wings of rebellion that breaketh thy chains of captivity. With the birth of the fortune persona, I have obtained the winds of blessing that shall lead to freedom and new power. The darkness faded and Mei continued to shake his hand. Alright. Now that negotiations have ended, let's start with your first test. Oh, right. What do you need me to test? Izuku asked, watching as Mei set her bag down and began to rummage through it. Allow me to introduce my latest baby, the wire arrow. Mei exclaimed, producing a harness from her bag. Attached to its sides were two silver tubes with pointed tips at the ends. They were both connected to a large metal spindle in the back. Quickly, put this on. Oh, okay. Izuku agreed without thinking, setting his backpack and Morgana down before taking the harness and quickly buckling it across his chest. The wire arrow was a fun design I picked up from an old anime, but with my own spin on it. Using compressed air, the harness launches a bolt connected to a steel wire that can support over several hundred pounds despite the thin design. Grab that switch under your left arm. Switch. Izuku looked over himself, quickly finding a small silver button hanging by a wire. This? Yep. Now, for the purpose of this test, you'll have to face the outside for the best possible result. Izuku obeyed, turning back to the open garage door and facing out. On the other side of the garage lot was the treeline that surrounded UAOOK. What now? Aim well and try to hit one of the outside trees by pressing on the top button. The air pressure is strong enough to launch the wire arrow accurately at over 100 meters. Mei exclaimed as her voice raised in volume, getting more excited with each use of her new baby. Izuku followed her instructions, positioning his body to match with the closest tree. Pressing the button, Izuku flinched as the left tube shot the bolt out and planted into the tree. Izuku smiled in awe, amazed by the accuracy and speed that the wire arrow launched at. That was incredible, Hitsumi-san. I barely felt it fire and it didn't go off course when I flinched. Right, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. The wire arrow can increase the user's mobility and travel speed exponentially for those without a movement quirk. Okay, now go ahead and press the bottom button. Bottom button? Izuku repeated, lifting the switch up to see an identical one on the bottom. What will this one do? Izuku immediately regretted pushing the button before finding out its purpose. He was swiftly yanked forward, the spindle on his back wrapping back up and rocketing Izuku toward the tree that the bolt had hooked into. Oh, make sure you press the center gauge to release the arrow. Izuku fiddled with the switch in panic, pressing what he could if it meant helping to slow him down. Out of sheer luck, he found the switch that released the bolt, winding it back up without using the tree for propulsion. While this had helped to slow him down, it didn't change the fact that he was still hurtling through the air. Izuku flew into the tangle of leaves waiting for him on the other end, getting his stomach caught on a particularly large branch. While it kept him from falling, the impact knocked the wind out of him, the boy falling limp as he hung over the branch. That was great, Midoriya-kun. You gave me plenty of data to work with. Mei called out, though Izuku could barely hear her over the pain he felt in his gut. Thanks to you, I can tell that the propulsion system is too strong and needs to be recalibrated. I'd say that this partnership of ours is off to a great start. Izuku groaned as he wondered how terrible future tests would be. Maybe this was a mistake, Persona 5 asked. Endless days, Morgana-san, can't I just sleep instead? After Izuku finished giving Mei the data on her wire arrow, the green-haired teen made a painful trip back home. He made sure to stop by Takemi's, asking for medicine to help with his bruised stomach. Despite her obvious amusement when she saw him stumble into her clinic in such a state, she was kind enough to give him some painkillers and cooling pads to dull the ache and reduce the swelling free of charge. Much to his chagrin, Morgana refused to let him rest just yet. The two now sat in front of the tool desk, Izuku hunched over the table with an ice pack taped over the bruise, while the cat rested just a few inches away from his head. After this, I'm just going to give you a quick rundown on how to make basic infiltration tools, Morgana persisted, Izuku letting out a pained grunt in response. Alright, when we were in Kamoshida's palace, you remember seeing several chests that were padlocked, right? Yeah, what about them? Well, as it just so happens, I know how to make lockpicks, Morgana said, puffing out his chest proudly. If we can make a few for the next palace we encounter, we'll be able to bring more loot back with us. You might think that we've got enough, but I can assure you that the stuff in the lock chests is way more valuable than the random junk shadows drop. I guess that could come in handy. His bed still seemed far more attractive than anything he could possibly be learning right now. Come on, tough it out. I haven't gotten to the best part. Morgana hissed, leaning forward and pushing Izuku's shoulder with his paw. These next tools are important, so sit up and pay attention. Izuku yawned and forced himself to sit up and hear Morgana out. Good. Okay, you still have the bag of materials I told you not to sell. Yeah, they're over here. Izuku leaned over the edge of his table, wincing as he felt his bruised stomachache and sting every time he moved. He powered through and grabbed the sack off the shelf, placing it on the table for Morgana to see. The cat burrowed through the bag, mumbling incoherently as he pawed through the contents. Izuku started to nod off, barely putting up a fight when his eyes became heavy. AHA. Perfect. What is? Izuku asked, rousing him from his near sleep again. Morgana pulled his body back out, several loose materials hanging from his mouth. I've got the materials we need to make it. So sit up and I'll instruct you on how to. Morgana stopped short when he saw that Izuku was about to fall over again. Okay, fine. I'll make this first tool as a demonstration. Try to hold in your amazement once I've finished. I'll try. Izuku honestly tried to give Morgana as much attention as he could muster, but it was proving a daunting task. His head dipped back up and down, each time coming back up in a vain attempt to stay awake. And done. Voila. Morgana declared, sitting back to let Izuku see his creation. He looked back up at Izuku expectantly, only to be disappointed when he saw the boy's head start to dip again. With a groan, he reached a paw forward and smacked the green-haired teen's cheeks lightly. Why yes. That's amazing, Morgana-san. Izuku snapped up in panic before his eyes landed on Morgana's supposed tool. It was a white ball poorly wrapped up in thin parchment. What is it? A smokescreen. A smokescreen. Izuku repeated, his tired brain taking a moment to process the information. Wait, a smokescreen. That revelation woke him up. That's right. All you do is throw it into the ground and poof. You've got yourself a smokescreen, Morgana explained, sitting tall and puffing out his furry chest. Impressive, right? Why yes. That really is amazing, but how did you make it with the stuff we gathered up? Izuku asked, carefully taking the ball in his hand and inspecting it closely. You'd be surprised what I can throw together with the junk dropped by shadows, Morgana chuckled, rubbing his head on the back of his paw. Lockpicks, smokescreens, offensive tools. If a phantom thief needs it, I know how to make it. All we need are the right materials. Wow, I can't believe it, Izuku mumbled, placing the ball back on the table. This will really help when we're inside a palace, but why didn't you bring this up when we were infiltrating Kamoshida's palace? I wasn't so sure you guys would be in this for the long haul. It would have been a waste of time otherwise. But now that I know you are, this felt like an appropriate time to bring it up. Now we'll have a lot more utility at our disposal during our heists. I see, that makes sense, Izuku said, nodding in understanding. So you're going to teach me how to make them? Another time. I was barely able to wake you up with this. We'll have plenty of time to make tools some other night. Why don't you get yourself to bed now? Izuku couldn't have heard any more welcome words at that moment, nodding in acceptance and pushing off the table. Izuku lamely dragged his feet to his bed, twisting to fall on his back and avoid his bruise. Ring ring. Izuku groaned when he heard his phone's text chime go off. He struggled to find his pocket, pathetically attempting to pull it out. Geez, I'll get it. Want me to read who it's from? Please. Oh, it's from Makoto Naejima. Izuku raised his head from his pillow, unable to ignore the message now. He sat up on his elbows, taking the phone from Morgana. Koto-san, hey Midori. I know we've been a bit quiet since our last discussion, but there is something I need to tell you. I wanted to find you after school, but I couldn't find you. Izuku pursed his lips, feeling guilty for not seeking out Makoto to talk things out. But considering how their last discussion ended, he had been afraid to approach her. Izuku. Sorry, I left right after school ended. I had to go meet with someone. What's wrong? Koto-san. Kabayakawa asked me to investigate the phantom thieves. Izuku nearly dropped his phone on the floor. He imagined that Kabayakawa would leave it up to the police to investigate the case for them. He wouldn't have guessed that the principal would take a personal interest in the matter. Izuku. I see. What did you say? Koto-san. That I would do it. It's the best way to keep him off your trail. I can keep up the facade as long as I have to. Izuku felt a pit form in his stomach. Even when she was mad at him, Makoto was still going out of her way to help him out. Izuku. I see. I'm sorry that I keep causing you trouble like this. Thank you for everything you've done to help us out. He couldn't leave it like that, not after how things had been. Izuku. And I'm sorry about what happened several days ago. I know that you were just looking out for me and the others. But if I can help people with this, I want to do it. He waited a moment for Makoto to reply, wondering what she might say. He would be happy if they could move on and get back to being friends again. But ever since things with Kamoshida escalated, their relationship had become tense for one reason or another. The fact that it was all his fault just made things worse. Finally, Makoto answered. Koto-san. It's okay. I know you could never stop yourself from helping people in need. And after today I think that you might be right. Izuku's eyes lit up, rereading the text over and over to make sure he wasn't seeing things. Another text message soon followed. Koto-san. Some things happened today that have me rethinking what I said to you, Koto-san. I just don't know. Izuku wondered if Kobayakawa had said something he shouldn't have to Makoto. He had been aware of Kamoshida's abuse after all, so it was easy to guess that he wasn't happy to see the coach confess to his crimes. But seeing Makoto's struggle, he decided to do his best to help her this time. Izuku. We should meet up tomorrow after school. We can talk about what happened then if you want. And I want to hang out again. Izuku couldn't ignore her feelings. If there was something bothering Makoto, there was no way he could just let it go. He wanted to do whatever he could to start mending fences. A moment later, his phone chimed again. Koto-san. Okay. I'd like that. We'll meet up at the front of the school. Izuku. Okay, I'll see you then. Good night, Koto-san. Koto-san, good night, Midori. Looks like you sorted some things out. I wonder what's bugging her, though? Morgana asked. The cat was seated by Izuku's head, so he could peek at the messages the teenagers were sending. I'm not sure, but I'm glad that she's talking to me again, Izuku yawned, resting his head back on his pillow. Really glad, and like that, Izuku was out like a light. Today has been a good day of shopping. Anne and Ryuji had spent the better half of their hangout that day, walking from outlet to outlet. The twin-tailed blonde didn't hesitate to tow Ryuji around like a reluctant dog on a leash, his arms becoming a hanger for shopping bags. By the time Anne had gotten her fill, Ryuji was exhausted from hauling them around all evening. Thankfully, Anne kept her word and allowed Ryuji to pick the place they'd stop and eat at. Wanting to relax for a bit, Ryuji suggested the diner on Shibuya's main street. Says you. My arms are gonna be effin' sore tomorrow, Ryuji grumbled, rubbing his exposed arm to massage out some of the marks left by the bag's thin handles. Oh, don't be such a baby. I picked out a few things for you too. Anne said with a wave of her hand. Plus, I'm buying you dinner. It all ended up working out. You picked something out for me? Yeah. Check the black bag on the far left. Ryuji turned to the 8 bags sitting on the side of their booth. Several of them were black, making the faux blonde bite his bottom lip as he took a guess at which bag to look into. The first one he grabbed produced a red bra. Not that one. Anne's face was turning a shade of pink as she reached forward and slapped his shoulder. The next one over. Sorry. Ryuji quickly apologized, but it took him a while to tear his eyes away. He moved on to the next bag, rummaging through it to see a couple designer t-shirts and a hoodie inside. Much to Ryuji's surprise, they were all things he'd want to wear. WHOA, these effin' rock. I'm surprised you got stuff I'd actually like. You guessed the size right, too. Anne grinned. Well, you haven't really changed your style since middle school. I figured you might appreciate something loud but fashionable. Well, damn, thanks Anne. These are pretty damn cool, Ryuji said, pulling the shirts out to get a better look at them. No worries. I know I was making you carry a lot, so I thought that maybe you deserved a little more than just dinner in return. Hey, I'm happy to take both, Ryuji chuckled, grinning at Anne. Though I'm pretty curious, where do you get the money for all this? Your part-time job pay that good? Well, it's partly that and partly my parents giving me an allowance. I don't see them that much since they're often abroad for their jobs, but they make sure to give me money each month. I usually have enough left over to splurge a little. Heh, I don't know if this would be considered a little, Ryuji looked down at the bags again. I feel like you coulda paid for our victory buffet on your own. No way, those prices were insane. It's one thing to invest in clothes, they last a lot longer than food. Spending that much on food is only for when you really do have the extra money. Anne argued, but Ryuji laughed it off. If you say so. Speaking of food, he licked his lips when he saw the waiter walk up to their table, a platter with their meals in hand. I sure did work up an appetite carrying those bags around. This wasn't Ryuji's first time at this joint, so he knew to order the Hamburg steak. It was the best one he ever had, except for the ones his mom made him. The tender, juicy patty seasoned with garlic, onion, horseradish, soy sauce, and Worcestershire sauce and thickened with freshly cracked eggs and breadcrumbs. What really put it over the top was the special brown gravy that the cooks kept top secret. Not even the waitresses knew what went into it. For a meat lover like Ryuji, it was perfect. Dig in. I know I am. Anne giggled, greedily snatching her fork off the table. She had ordered the sweetest entree on the menu. The sugar-dusted buttermilk pancakes that had maple syrup drizzled all over them. Even though it was dinner time, there was no resisting how fluffy and airy they were. Besides, she was going to keep being a phantom thief. If the next palaces were anything like Kamoshida's, she'd definitely be putting in enough exercise to maintain her figure. What was there to worry about? But before she could lose herself in sweets-fueled ecstasy, she was overcome by the feeling that she was being watched. She looked up from her meal and began scrutinizing every single face in the room. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. No one was focused on her or their table. Then again, menus were hiding people's faces, and there was no telling what kind of creep could be hiding behind a laminated piece of paper. Something wrong. Anne snapped her head back as she heard Ryuji's voice. It's nothing. I thought I felt someone watching me, but guess I'm imagining things. She gave the diner another once over, but still couldn't find anything suspicious. Huh. Weird. I haven't felt like that at all, Ryuji shrugged, stuffing his mouth and waving goodbye to his manners. I think you're just being paranoid now that we're officially thieves, you know. Anne looked back down at the table. Yeah, I guess you're right. See? Just relax, Ryuji encouraged through stuffed cheeks. By the way, your food's getting cold. Oh, crap. Anne gripped her fork again, finally starting her meal. Several tables away, a menu set itself down. A pair of gray eyes glued to the twin-tailed blonde. I finally found her, my muse. Chapter 20. Izuku's foot was tapping with trepidation as he waited outside the school gates. While Makoto had expressed her interest in talking again, he couldn't help but feel nervous. It seemed like every time that they met like this, Izuku did something wrong and ended up straining their relationship. Today, Izuku was set on fixing that no matter what. He wasn't sure what he could do to fix it, but he would keep his options open. I'll do whatever it takes. Midori. Izuku stopped, looking up the stairs to see Makoto approaching. She gave a small hesitant wave as she approached, showing her own nervousness. Hey. Hi, Koto-san. Good to see you. Same. Sorry if I made you wait. I had to speak with some students before leaving. Makoto fiddled with the shoulder strap of her bag. So then, shall we? We can walk and talk. Okay. Where are we going, though? Izuku asked, moving to Makoto's side and walking in line with her through the alley. How about Big Bang Burger? I'm actually a bit famished, Makoto admitted with a small chuckle. Okay. But I'll pay this time. Izuku said, swallowing a nervous lump in his throat. Midori, you don't have to. Why yes I do. You paid for me last time, so it's only fair, Izuku reminded her, looking at the brunette with a firm stare. Please leave it to me. Makoto opened her mouth to protest, but shut her eyes and relented with a small smile. Well, if you insist. I'll leave it to you, then. An awkward silence fell between them soon afterwards. They both had things they wanted to say, but neither of them were sure if now was the right time to speak their minds. Izuku decided to take a chance and opened his mouth. I'm sorry. Izuku blinked, realizing that Makoto had spoken at the same time as him. He looked at Makoto, a sheepish fluster covering her face. Sorry, I didn't mean to. No, feel free to say, I was just, you two need to slow down. Izuku jumped when he heard Morgana's voice over his shoulder, the cat now poking his head out of his book bag. Morgana-san. Sorry, but the awkward atmosphere was killing me, Morgana sighed before looking at Makoto, the third-year student staring at him with wide eyes. You can still hear me, right? Why yes, though I can't say I'm quite used to it just yet, Makoto cleared her throat before looking at Izuku. I didn't realize you were carrying him in your bag. Morgana, right. Correct. And I go everywhere with Izuku. I have to steer him towards the best courses of action to improve our chances in the metaverse, after all, Morgana said, puffing his chest out in pride. Everywhere? Makoto raised a brow, looking at Izuku for confirmation. The green-haired teen gave a weak forced smile, as his exhaustion from the previous day took hold. Yeah, he insists. Hey, what's that look for? I at least give you time alone when you spend it with other people, don't I? Morgana looked at Makoto and coughed awkwardly. Well, usually. I sort of wanted to see what was going to happen with you, and Izuku forgot to let me out, so despite herself, Makoto began to laugh, raising a closed hand in front of her mouth to be polite. I guess you two are pretty close, then. But I would appreciate it if you would give Izuku and I some time to speak alone. Oh, alright. I guess what you guys have to talk about is pretty personal, after all. Morgana hopped out of Izuku's bag and started trotting through the alley. I'll meet you at the station, Izuku. See you later. Why yeah, Izuku sighed as he and Makoto watched the cat leave. Sorry about that. Morgana-san means well. It's fine. If anything, I can appreciate that he broke the ice between us, Makoto laughed before giving Izuku a smile. Come on, let's get a burger. With that, the two headed for Shibuya. They decided to hold their apologies for when they were seated and eating, walking in relative ease now. It wasn't long before they arrived at Big Bang Burger, seated inside with double-stacked hamburgers sitting in front of them. So Principal Kabayakawa asked you to look into the Phantom Thieves. Yes. He suggested that I would be able to get a more personal look into the students better than a teacher could. I don't know if he's trying to keep it as quiet as possible or is trying to avoid more work, but either way, he gave me the task, Makoto explained, resentment evident in her tone. I used to think he was respectable, at least. But the more I talk with him, the more I begin to see he only cares about the school's reputation rather than its students. I see, thank you for telling me, Koto-san. I know it's been difficult. If you would let me, I'd like to say something first, Makoto said, causing Izuku to nod his head in agreement. Okay then, to start, I just want to say I'm sorry for how things ended between us in our last conversation. It wasn't easy to accept what you were saying. Especially knowing what it entails. I know. I'm sorry that I'm always making you worry, Izuku's gaze drifted to the table. I know I haven't made it easy. You've just been trying to look out for me. It seems like every time I do something, I cause trouble for you. I'm sorry. A somber silence followed, the two allowing the moment to linger as they let their words to sink in. You really are that same kid I met on the playground, he perked up at Makoto's words. Always recklessly throwing yourself into trouble if it meant protecting someone in need. Never considering the consequences of your actions. Even now, 4 years later, you're still doing it. But I guess I thought that was your coolest quality. Izuku couldn't stop the flush in his cheeks, grinning goofily as he tried to think of a way to return the compliment. But we're not kids anymore, Midori. What you do now carry much graver consequences than they did then. You know that better than anyone. With that, Izuku's shoulders tensed up, his blush fading as he frowned. So I'm going to ask this one last time, in spite of everything that's happened, are you really still willing to go through with this thieves business? Izuku's lips pressed into a thin line, brow furrowing as he looked up at Makoto. I am. As long as the Phantom Thieves can help people by stealing hearts, I'm going to do what I can. Ryuji-senpai, Ann-senpai, Morgana-san and I. We've decided to do everything we can for people who suffered the way we have. It was Makoto's turn to break eye contact as she considered his words. Izuku swallowed another lump in his throat, knowing that he had done little to reassure her. He knew that by continuing his work as a phantom thief, he'd be making Makoto worry even more. But Izuku had to make sure that she knew how serious he was. It would help her understand the gravity of his next words. Koto-san, I'd like for you to join us, too. That breathed life back into Makoto, the student council president's eyes shooting up to look at Izuku in disbelief. What? You always wanted to be a hero too, right? When we were kids, you were right there next to me in Kaken, shouting out your hero name, Biker KSHHH. Makoto hushed him as her cheeks turned pink. Please don't remind me. I always feel embarrassed thinking about that stuff. Sorry, Izuku laughed sheepishly, rubbing the back of his head before grinning. But still, I know you wanted to help people in the name of justice. Not to mention that you have such an amazing quirk. I'm sure you do great inside the palaces we'll be dealing with. Makoto bit her bottom lip, conflicted emotions whirling up inside as she considered Izuku's offer. A week ago, I would have told you to stop speaking nonsense and that you needed to give up on the idea. But after what happened with Principal Kabayakawa, I just don't know. Oh, right. You did say that something happened that made you rethink things. What was it? Izuku asked, seeing her disgust at the mention of the fat principal. As you're aware, he was partial to what Kamoshida was doing to students. If that wasn't enough, I overheard something even worse after I finished speaking to me. I heard him speaking to police officers in his office. I couldn't make it all out because they were whispering, but I heard enough. Kabayakawa had been paying those officers off. Izuku's eyes widened in shock, jaw slacking, as he struggled to find the words to react with. He knew that Kabayakawa was negligent of the students, but this went beyond what he feared. Apparently someone, or maybe several people even, reported Kamoshida's harassment. But Kabayakawa was only ever concerned with the school's reputation. So much so that he would pay off police to look the other way. Makoto crossed her arms across her chest and dug her fingers into her sleeves. Kabayakawa is one thing, but for the police themselves to turn away, all for money. It had made me reconsider everything you said, Koto-san. He wanted her to see eye to eye with him, but never wanted it to happen like this. But even with after learning all of that, I can't join the Phantom Thieves just yet. Not because I disagree with you, but I have to take several things into consideration, Makoto explained, folding her hands together on her lap. I want to do everything I can to make sure my sister is happy. Ever since our father passed, she's been carrying the burden of taking care of me. As happy as it makes me to hear that you want me on your team, I have to think about it. I'm sorry. Izuku frowned. He couldn't say he wasn't disappointed by her answer, but he knew he'd do the same if their positions were reversed. I understand. Expecting you to join immediately is a lot to ask for. Take as much time as you need, Kodo-san. I'll wait for your answer, Izuku told her, giving a reassuring smile. Thank you, Midori. I mean it when I say that it makes me happy to hear that you want me to join you. Once I have my answer, I'll be sure to tell you immediately, Makoto said, allowing herself to smile. Even without her acceptance, Izuku felt things returning to normal between them. In fact, he could honestly say that he felt their relationship had deepened with their understanding. Smash Priestess confidant. Rank 2 Izuku's eyes widened as his sight returned normal, surprised, but no less happy to see that they had indeed become a bit closer. Makoto looked down at their food for a moment and blinked. Goodness, we haven't even touched our burgers. We should probably eat quick before they're too cold. Oh, right. I almost forgot too. Whoa, you asked her to join. It was Sunday now, and the team had gathered together to meet with Miss Hima and his mystery friend. The plain-looking boy suggested they meet at Inokashira Park, a peaceful place that Anne was the most familiar with. Since the group had gathered together, Izuku saw it as a good chance to explain what happened with Makoto the previous day. Yeah, she said she'll think about it. Kodo-san has a lot on her plate right now, so she's not sure if she can. But I'm happy that we were able to make up more than anything. Anne grinned. Plus, it sounds like she finally gets why we're doing this. Good job, Izuku. Still, I'm surprised you asked her to join. Didn't you say before that you were keeping her out to protect her? Morgana asked. That was when we didn't know how the things with Kamoshida were going to turn out, let alone whether or not we would still be the Phantom Thieves. But now that we've decided to go down this road, I think that Kodo-san would be the best person we could recruit. She's had our back through all of this, even when things were strained between us. I think she'd be invaluable as a teammate, Izuku explained. Well, if you're that sure then I'm for it, said Ryuji. But damn, the more I hear about that asshole Kabayakawa, the more pissed off I get. Maybe we should steal his heart so he doesn't cause any more trouble. For now, I think it's safe to ignore him. With Kamoshida gone and the situation public, he's got his hands full already, Morgana suggested. Kabayakawa might have enabled Kamoshida, but he can't cause any harm on his own. Of course, if you guys want to go after him, we can. We can think about it in the future. Targeting him right now would be a bad idea, since we want to lay low until exams are over, Izuku said. Ryuji groaned. Don't remind me. Hey, I think I see Miss Hima-kun, Anne pointed out, bringing their attention forward. Miss Hima was sitting on a bench under the shade several meters ahead, chatting with someone seated next to him. He seemed to catch them out of the corner of his eye, smiling as he turned and waved them over. As the four approached, Miss Hima stood up with his companion, immediately causing all three to stop. Hey, guys, good to see you. Shiho said, giving a nervous smile and waved to the three. Shiho. Anne exclaimed, a joyful grin spreading across her lips as she rushed up to her best friend, hugging her close without warning. Shiho only giggled as she returned the embrace. And no way, dude, Ryuji muttered, slowly beginning to walk up and join them. He soon noticed that Izuku wasn't next to him, looking back to see Izuku frozen in place. Izuku. You good? Why yeah, I'm okay. Izuku's eyes were already starting to water as the thoughts and emotions he'd buried weeks ago rose to the surface. Did she resent him for his failure to save her? But she had asked to see them, hadn't she? What did she want to say to him? You'll never find out unless you ask her yourself, kid. Carter's voice brought Izuku out of his thoughts. You're right. Whatever she has to say, I'll take it. Izuku wiped his eyes with his sleeves and walked forward, waiting for Shiho to finish speaking with Anne. What are you doing out like this? Shouldn't you be at the hospital? When did you get discharged? Anne asked, blinking away any remaining tears. Yesterday. I didn't say anything because I wanted to surprise you, Shiho said, giving Anne a warm smile. My mom wasn't keen on letting me out the same day I get home, but it really helps to be able to come out and see you guys. You're looking good, Suzui. Recovery girl did some real good work on ya, huh? Ryuji asked, joining the two and grinning at the brunette. Yes. I owe her a lot. What could have taken months or a year to heal was fixed in a couple weeks. Thanks to her, I can give my thanks and, her voice trailed off as she looked at Izuku, her smile falling as he received her full attention. Her gaze alone was enough to shake Izuku's confidence. His eyes wouldn't meet Shiho's no matter how hard he tried. All of his attempts to smile quivered. His hand trembled as he waved at her. Hi, Suzui-senpai. Shiho was silent, her expression unreadable. She slowly strode over to Izuku, whose feet shifted nervously but remained firmly planted in the ground. He already accepted whatever words she might have for him, no matter how terrible they might be. Shiho stopped a meter away from Izuku, wringing the fabric of her skirt. Izuku dared to look up at her face again, widening his eyes as he saw a wistful smile, mist building up in her eyes again. Thank you. Shiho bowed as deeply as possible. Thank you for saving me. Izuku's lip trembled, shame overcoming him as he looked to the side. I didn't though. I couldn't back then. I didn't want to be saved. I just wanted to end it, Shiho admitted, slowly rising from her bow and looking straight into his eyes. Even after I woke up, I didn't know what I would do with myself. But after I saw Kamoshida confess, I felt like I really could keep going on. Like someone reached out and pulled me from the brink. Recovery girl saved my life, but you, Anne, Sakamoto-kun. Shiho's lips spread into a sincere, heartfelt smile, shining for all to see. You all saved my soul. You're truly my heroes. Izuku stared at her in disbelief. All of the floodgates in his heart burst open. A new wave of tears spilled out and sank into the soil at his feet. He let out a loud cry, clutching at his chest as her words filled him with immeasurable happiness. He fell to his knees, continuing to sob as Shiho's words erased the last traces of guilt that clouded his mind. Ryuji and Anne walked up to his side, rubbing his shoulder gently and helping him up. Neither said a word, understanding his burst of emotion more than anyone. Shiho didn't seem to mind either, watching everything unfold in silence. Mishima moved to stand next to her, wiping a single tear from his own eye. Sorry, I'm really a mess, huh? Izuku laughed, grinning through his tears and looking at Shiho with mirth. Thank you for saying that. Hey, I'm the one who should be thanking you. It was wrong for me to put that weight on your shoulders. That's why I'm going to be helping Mishima-kun. Together we'll support the Phantom Thieves any way we can, Shiho said, a new look of determination flashing in her eyes. So please keep helping people who suffered like I did, like everyone had. We will. I promise, Izuku declared, sniffling one last time and nodding. Great. Then from now on, know that we'll be here to back you guys up. Mishima declared, giving Izuku a thumbs up. Smash. I am thou art I. Thou hast acquired a new vow. It shall become the wings of rebellion that breaketh thy chains of captivity. With the birth of the moon persona, I have obtained the winds of blessing that shall lead to freedom and new power. While Izuku was more than happy to have formed a link with them, he was admittedly surprised that the moon arcana was present for both Suzui and Mishima. Before the darkness faded, he could see the cards of the moon arcana hovering above them both. When making these links, he thought that it would form one for each person he knew. But clearly this wasn't the case. Well, even so, I'm okay with that. I'd be happy to spend time with them both. Not to be presumptuous, but we thought we'd make a suggestion for your next target, Shiho said, looking at Mishima and nodding. The plain boy fished out a folded paper from his pocket, holding it out for them to take. Our next target really? Ryuji asked, quickly taking the paper and opening it up. It's not a big one like Kamoshida, I think. But even the small-time offenders should be stopped, you know. Mishima said. A lot of the stuff that people are posting on the fan side has been really petty and unimportant. But as we went through the posts, Shiho thought this would be a good one for you to start with. Natsuhiko Nakanohara. Who is he? Anne asked, reading his name aloud. Just some city office worker. Apparently he's been stalking his ex-girlfriend. She's starting to get scared, so she posted his name to the site. She's hoping you can change his heart and make him stop, Shiho said. That does sound pretty bad. I'm willing to take the case. Are you guys okay with it? Izuku asked, looking at Ryuji and Anne in question. Well, would be a nice way to kick things off, officially. I'm up for this, Ryuji agreed with a crack of his knuckles. Count me in. Getting stalked like that does sound scary, Anne nodded, giving Shiho and Mishima a smile. Thanks for finding this case for us. No problem. If we run into any more cases that catch our attention, we'll be sure to let you guys know, Mishima said with excitement. And as site moderator, I'll make sure to verify the cases we find. Plus, I'll keep Mishima from picking something dumb, Shiho declared, a teasing smile on her lips as she made the plain-looking teen pout. Hey, what makes you think I would do that? Just a small gut feeling. That's harsh anyway, thanks for seeing us today. I can't wait to see what the Phantom Thieves do next. Mishima said, turning to leave with Shiho. We'll support you, no matter what happens. So try and be careful out there, okay? I don't know how you guys do it, but I'm sure it's dangerous. We're counting on you, Shiho said, giving Anne a quick hug before turning around and following Mishima out. Man, that was really cool. I'm glad to see Suzui back on her feet, Ryuji said, grinning as he looked at Anne and Izuku. Things turned out really well, huh? Yeah. I'm really happy to see Shiho's up and about. It really makes me happy that we chose to keep being the Phantom Thieves, Anne said, smiling back at him. Things sure did get emotional. But I'm glad you were finally able to get that last issue off your back, Morgana said, popping his head out of Izuku's bag. How do you feel? Really good. I needed to hear that. It was a huge relief, Izuku said. The last of his tears had already dried when he turned to his friends with a clenched fist. I'm really excited to start now. Guys, I know we have finals starting tomorrow, but would you be willing to go after our new target right now? Right now? As in right at this moment? Ryuji asked, taken aback by the suggestion. Well, I guess we do have the rest of the day to do stuff. But should we really go after a new palace just like that? Anne asked. Considering the nature of the request, I doubt that we'll be dealing with a palace. Come, let's head to Shibuya Station. Izuku and I have something to show you too, Morgana said, his feline smile stretching in excitement. Holy shit. This place is nuts. Heading back to Shibuya together, Morgana and Izuku took the time to explain mementos to Anne and Ryuji. The two were surprised to say the least, but were thankful to know that such a place existed. With everything laid out for them, the group didn't hesitate to dive right into mementos. While Morgana and Izuku had described what they could, seeing mementos for themselves was still overwhelming. I got a really creepy vibe from the castle, but this feels way different, Anne muttered, rubbing her arms as she looked around the station. As they stepped down to the turnstiles that led to the underground passage, their clothes immediately transformed. Whoa. We're in our thief gear, dude, no way. They already know we're here, Ryuji asked in panic. Yes. Unlike the shadows at Kamoshida's castle, the shadows in mementos can sense our presence. We'll have to be on guard, as mementos is teeming with shadows. Why didn't you say anything earlier? We're safe at this point. I explained this to Izuku before, but I've been here many times investigating. I have a good idea of the layout, Morgana reassured, placing his paws on his hips. So mementos is everyone's palace, Anne muttered, thinking over what Morgana said on their way to Shibuya. So does that mean even if someone doesn't have a palace, we can change their hearts through here? Correct, Lady Anne. Though the steps we take to do so are different. This is pretty rad, but does that mean the entire subway system is down there? We just gonna foot it all around this place? Ryuji asked, not liking the idea himself. I suppose the time has finally come. Watch closely and be amazed, Morgana said, causing the others to raise a brow in question. He hopped to the empty part of the hall, struck a pose and started waving his paw in a ring above his head. Morgana. Transform. With a quick hop in the air, Morgana suddenly burst in a puff of smoke. The next moment, he was replaced by a small, black bus with a yellow stripe running down the center. Its headlights, which were the same clear blue as Morgana's eyes, blinked at them intently. The other thieves gaped as they processed what just happened. Hey, come now, Panther. Ladies first, Morgana echoed, his voice unchanged by his strange new form. Morgana-san. How did you? Izuku stuttered out. Why the hell did you become a car of all things? How the hell? Ryuji exclaimed, failing to see the logic behind this. This comes from the way cognition materializes in the metaverse. Plus a bit of extra training, Morgana suggested, sounding far too casual despite his statement. You could say it's similar to how your clothes transform. You changing into a car is way different than our clothes changing. Ryuji snapped in disbelief. Well, apparently the idea of a cat transforming into a bus is an extremely common cognition among the general public. I can't imagine why, though, said Morgana, who likely would have shrugged if he weren't a bus right now. My neighbor Totoro, the three muttered in exasperation. Pardon? Nothing, just still a little shocked, Izuku laughed sheepishly, rubbing the back of his head. Hey, wait. Why didn't you do this in the palace for us? Ryuji asked. Those hallways weren't exactly bus-friendly. It would be way too cramped. And I doubt I'd be able to jump on chandeliers in this form. Well, I guess that makes sense, said Ryuji, conceding to Morgana's logic. Deciding to take a look inside, he walked up to the backseat doors, sliding them open. Damn, gotta admit. Sure is spacious in here. Hey. Skull. Ladies first. Anne said, curiosity taking over as she ran up to the behind him and started to pull him out. Hey. Careful how you're pulling me like that. Panther. Please, be gentle. It's still my body. You even have a motor and everything aside from the cattail in back, you really are a bus down to the engine. Izuku walked up to the hood and lifted it up to feel the parts inside. Gah. Hey hero. That feels weird. Sorry. With their curiosity sated, Izuku joined Ryuji and Anne in the back seat, the three comfortably seating themselves. Now this is more like it. Let's get moving. Ryuji said, relaxing back in his seat as they waited for the bus to move. Mona, why aren't we moving? What are you guys doing? I need a driver. What? You can't drive yourself. Ryuji blanched in disappointment. This totally just lost a ton of cool points. So do either of you know how to drive? Anne asked, looking at Izuku and Ryuji expectantly. And not at all, Izuku admitted, sweat trailing down his cheek. The only thing I can consider close to it was in an arcade game. I didn't play much of that though. Oh well, how hard can it be? Ryuji mumbled, looking at Izuku expectantly. You should give it a shot. If it doesn't work out, then maybe we'll all take a turn trying. Wait, I don't know if I like that idea, Morgana said worriedly. If you guys are going to do that, then be as careful as possible. Sorry, Morgana-san. We'll do our best to make sure you don't get damaged. Izuku stepped out of the back seat and moved to the driver's side. Ryuji hopped over the front seat, riding shotgun while Anne moved to the middle, leaning on the back of the front seat. Do we need keys for this? Not at all. There's a switch underneath by the gas, Morgana said as Izuku settled into the driver's seat. The first-year student swallowed slowly, reached under the steering wheel and felt the underside of the dashboard for the switch. That tickles. Lower, lower. It's still weird to think we're inside Morgana-san right now, Izuku mumbled to himself, finding the switch and turning on the engine. Ooh, that's GOOOOD, oh god, is the engine purring. This gets creepier by the second. Ryuji shivered, shaking his head. Okay, hero. We're trusting you on this. Oh okay. I'll do my best. Izuku stepped on the gas a smidge too hard, causing them to jerk forward before he slammed his foot on the brakes. The three swayed back and forth harshly with the bus. Sorry, oh boy, Morgana moaned. This might take a while. After much trial and error, it was decided that Izuku had made the fewest mistakes while driving. While he was still incredibly tense at the wheel, he was at least getting an idea of how hard he needed to step on the gas and brakes to start and stop without crashing into anything. Well, at least we're making progress, Morgana sighed, weary from having so many drivers. Ryuji and Anne had more close calls with the subway walls than he cared to mention. I never would have imagined I'd learn how to drive this way, Izuku laughed uneasily, gripping the steering wheel as tightly as possible. Try not to think too hard about it. Just keep us steady and we'll be fine, Anne suggested as she patted his shoulder. But man, it really does feel like the inside of a palace, huh? This place gives me the creeps, Ryuji said, leaning on the window of his door and peering out at the tunnels around them. The place would be pitch black if it weren't for the thin lamps that lined the walls, all of which glowed bloody red. No kidding, so where's this Nakanohara guy supposed to be? Anne asked, peeking out the backseat window. How are we supposed to find him? I can sense a distortion for the most part, but I can't pinpoint exactly where it is. You guys should keep an eye out for any distortions you can find. It will be pretty obvious once you see it, Morgana said, causing Ryuji to groan. So we're just gonna have to drive around till we find it. That bites. At least we're not tackling a full palace. The distortion will be minuscule by comparison. Any shadows aside from the Nakanoharas we fight will only be what we find on the way to it. What is that? Izuku blurted out, slamming his foot on the brake and bringing them to a complete stop. Anne and Ryuji peered through the front window, their jaws dropping as they saw a tall black being stomping across the tracks. Its body lacked any sort of defining features, except for the collection of distorted white masks that littered the upper half of its body. Thankfully, it didn't seem to notice them, stomping down its intended path as if they weren't even there. That is the host body of the shadows living here. They're similar to the knights we took down in Kamoshida's castle, Morgana explained. Don't worry, they might look big and tough, but they're no stronger than what we fought before. Oh, okay. Maybe we should get out and try to take its mask off, then. Izuku said, looking back at his companions for approval. Why do that? Just drive me right into its back. I'll knock it over, then transform back into my usual body so we can get a surprise attack on the shadows once they materialize. Morgana suggested, a bit too much excitement in his voice for comfort. Aw dude, that sounds awesome. You should totally do it, hero. Ryuji encouraged, giving Izuku a grin. Would just drive right into the shadow. Well, it would definitely knock it down at that size. It sounds like it's worth a try, Anne agreed, looking at Izuku expectantly. Don't worry, hero. We believe in you. Run the shadow over. Izuku pursed his lips, shifting his gaze back forward. The shadow's back was to them. It would never see them coming if he started now. Izuku took a deep breath before stomping on the gas and clenching his eyes shut. Morgana's tires screeched as they sped forward, ramming straight into the shadow's back with a loud thunk. Morgana bounced back after the impact, his body immediately returning to his original form. He and the others landed on their feet with weapons in hand. The black giant tumbled over on the ground, its body becoming a swirl of ooze that spewed out several shadows. As they took shape, Izuku noted that they were all slimes. Mona, Panther. Hit them with wind and fire. On it. They answered, Carmen and Zora materializing above them both. Agi. Geru. But the swing of her slave and a whiff of his sword, the two quickly unleashed torrents of fire and wind. Izuku made sure to follow up with the same, summoning Jack-o'-lantern and blasting the third his own fire spell. Let's finish him off. Ryuji roared. Captain Kidd fired a volley of lightning from its arm cannon and blasted the stunned slimes. That was enough to seal the deal, the shadows quickly bursting back into black ooze and disappearing. Izuku and his teammates took a moment to catch their breath, smiling as they looked at one another. "Dude, that was totally badass." Ryuji laughed. "I can't believe we did all that in one combo. We've really gotten good at this." Ann said, running over to Ryuji and high-fiving him before going to Izuku for the same. I didn't think hitting them with the car would be so effective. We were able to recover so quickly after Mona transformed, too. Yes. As you can all tell, I am quite amazing." "You're welcome," Morgana chuckled, puffing his chest out in pride. "Come on. We shouldn't linger on the ground too long. We don't want to be the ones to get ambushed." With their celebration cut short, the three quickly piled in after Morgana transformed once again. Driving around, Izuku made sure to pass by the many different steel doors. Some were accessible to them while others were locked off. Some doors led nowhere, but some yielded decent loot and treasure chests for them to pick up. Moving onto the second floor, Morgana's metal body suddenly began to rumble. "I can feel it. The shadow is on this floor. About time. Makes me wonder what the distortion you mentioned looks like." Ryuji started, trailing off as the three drove out of the second floor entrance. Just a small ways to their left, the subway rails had twisted and morphed into a strange portal that was turned up into the wall. It was a swirling mixture of black and red whirlpool that seemed to suck all the wind and dust around it inside like a black hole. I'm guessing that's it?" Ann asked, staring in awe. "That's correct. It looks like we've finally found our target," Morgana confirmed. "Okay, then. Considering that this is a shadow of a person and not just the usual enemy, we should be careful. He will no doubt be stronger than what we just fought. Though considering his distortion is so small, he's not going to be as strong as Kamoshida's shadow, right Mona?" "Yep. He'll be a tough customer, no doubt, but his cognition isn't so powerful that he can be anything considered close to Kamoshida. As long as we're careful, we should be fine." Izuku nodded. "Okay. Is everyone ready?" "You know I am." Ryuji said with a grin. "Let's change this stalker's heart," added Ann. "Alright, we're going in." Izuku shifted back into drive, diving straight into the distortion. While the view slightly warped as they entered, nothing appeared to affect them as they drove inside. The walls and tracks were no different than the ones outside, but at the center of the concealed area was a lone man in a black business suit, his head tilted down and taking no notice of them. Izuku stepped out of the driver's seat, walking ahead to meet the shadow. They couldn't simply hit Nakanohara's shadow with a car, as that might actually kill him. They had to hear his reasons for themselves and convince him of his wrongdoings. Just like we did Kamoshida. His heart isn't nearly as distorted, so it shouldn't be too hard. "Who are you?" Nakanohara's shadow spat as he turned, looking at Izuku and his team in suspicion. "Are you the asshole stalking his ex? We got a bone to pick with you." Ryuji exclaimed, pulling his pipe out and pointing it at Nakanohara. "Yeah. Haven't you stopped to consider her feelings? She is your ex, after all. You shouldn't be treating her like that." Ann said with an accusatory glare. "So what if I am? She's my property. I'll do what I want with her. She treated me like a plaything too, after all. Why should I be the one punished? Tormenting someone because of what happened in the past doesn't solve anything. You're just hanging on to that hate and won't let go." Izuku declared. "Damn straight. We're gonna take down all the shitty adults mistreating people like you are. There are plenty worse people out there than me. People like that damned Mataram. What about him, huh? He stole everything from me, but you're just gonna ignore him," Nakanohara snapped, causing the four to hesitate for a moment. "You know what? Fuck it, we're done talking." Nakanohara's body liquefied, falling into a pool of black ooze before reforming as a long-armed red imp with hair covering the top half of his face. Horns sat on top of his head and suction cups in its palms and fingertips. "This is a winner-takes-all world. I'll beat you losers down and show you what that means. Get ready, here he comes." Morgana warned, watching as the shadow launched itself forward, slamming its palm into the ground as it attempted to strike Izuku. "Carter, come." Izuku called out, pulling off his mask and summoning his original persona. They both extended their right arms and held their middle fingers back with their thumbs, aiming directly at Nakanohara's shadow. Quantico smash. The imp was sent tumbling backward from the wave of force and compressed air, only for him to stop his flight with a suction-cupped hand gripping the ground. "Ha. Pathetic, loser." He mocked. Izuku bit back a curse as he turned to his teammates. "Be careful. He's resistant to physical damage. Look for his weakness." "I'm on it. Come, Zoro." Morgana proclaimed, the black mask persona taking shape and sending a billowing gust of wind with a wave of its sword. The shadow staggered several steps backward but showed no signs of lasting damage. "You little runt. I'll show you." It growled, smacking the ground and hopping in the air at Morgana. A bolt of lightning stopped him in his tracks. Ryuji made the quick move of summoning his persona. "Gagh, heh." Looks like lightning works pretty well on this asshole. Ryuji smiled, crossing his arms over his chest. Not bad, Skull. I guess you can be good for something every once in a while, Morgana chuckled, pointing his blade at the now stunned Shadow. We should seize this opportunity. Right. Everyone, together. Let's finish him. Izuku ordered, the others nodding as they gripped their weapons tight and jumped at the Shadow. But the barrage of hits, the four wailed on the defenseless Shadow, Izuku delivering one last hit with his staff and knocking the imp back. Gah, the imp cried out, rolling against the ground with a thud, head is smacking against the rails. He groaned in pain, his body beginning to fade again as it shifted back to his human form. The Kanehara Shadow slumped over as he stood, all of his resistance and former confidence gone. Oh okay, I've had enough. Good. Have you learned your lesson? Izuku asked, lowering his staff as he and his friend surrounded Kanehara. Why yes, I was wrong to do that to my ex, forgive me. I needed an outlet. I needed something to focus my attention on after my teacher tossed me to the side. Before I knew it, I became obsessed, the Shadow admitted, his eyes cast to the side in shame. That Madaram guy, right? He was your teacher? Anne asked. Well, I get that you had it rough, you really shouldn't have taken it out on your ex. It wasn't her fault that happened to you. I know. I'm sorry, I'll make sure to apologize to her as well, the Shadow sighed dejectedly. Izuku frowned, realizing that the man was truly sorry for his actions. Sympathizing with him, Izuku knew what to say. Now that you've repented, you don't have to worry. We'll go after that teacher of yours, Izuku said, causing the others, including the Kanehara Shadow, to look at him in surprise. Madaram, right. I'm sorry to hear that you were mistreated like that. But that's why the Phantom Thieves of Hearts are here. We'll make sure to avenge you and that he never does it again. I promise. He declared, giving the Shadow a confident smile. Kanehara's Shadow stared at Izuku in shock, but a small smile crept up on his lips. Okay, I'll choose to believe in you, Phantom Thieves. Please stop Madaram before someone else is hurt by him, thank you. The Shadow said before his body began to fade, disappearing as a brilliant light took his place. Heh. Smooth talking there, hero. I think you really touched his heart, Morgana smiled, going up to Izuku's leg and nudging him. It wouldn't feel right to leave him hopeless. He did some bad things, but he wasn't a bad person at heart. If we can help him too, then I'll be happy to do it, Izuku said, looking down at Morgana and smiling. Hey, what's that? Ryuji asked, the others looking up to see the light persisting where Kanehara once stood. Ah, that's the butt of a treasure. If a shadow like that is left alone long enough, it can become a full-fledged palace. But silver lining, it does provide a reward for our efforts. Go ahead and claim it, hero. Morgana said. Oh, okay then, Izuku walked up to the treasure, snatching it out of the air to see a pearl forming in his hand. He stuffed it into his pocket, looking back at his friends. I guess we're done here. Yep. Too bad we didn't get more on that Madaram guy, though. But if that teacher is as bad as all that, then maybe another one of his students will report it. Anne suggested hopefully. We can look into it again sometime. More information would have been nice, though, he sighed, hoping that he could keep his promise to Kanehara. Well, until then, I say we get out of here. But man, this place effin' rocks. It'll be a great place to use for practice and train our personas before going to a palace, don't you think? Ryuji said with a grin. Anne smiled. Plus it's nice to be able to help out the little guy. We can't just forget the little problems people face, you know. I agree on both accounts. Heroes do everything they can to support the people, whether it's getting cats out of trees or stopping villains. So we'll do the same, Izuku agreed, looking at his team. And you're right, Skull. Mementos really is a great place to train. I think that we should try to use it as much as possible to keep us from getting rusty between targets. Maybe we should set up a schedule for when we go in during the week. We'll have to be careful not to go too frequently because it can be so tiring. Plus, given how risky it is, we really do. Mumbling, Ryuji and Anne said, causing Izuku to flinch in embarrassment. Heh. It has been a while since we've seen that. It's a bit refreshing to see it again, Morgana teased, skipping to the front of the group. With that, our mission is accomplished. But before we head out of Mementos, I do have somewhere I'd like to show you all first. Alright, we're here. Izuku, Ryuji and Anne slowly trailed behind Morgana, eyes scanning their surroundings in wonder. Going to the second floor as Morgana asked, they came to a subway platform with the tracks running at its sides. But unlike the previous floor, trains flew across these tracks. I thought trains didn't run through Mementos, Izuku said, watching as one blew past them. They don't on the previous floor. But I suppose this one is an exception, Morgana said, skipping ahead of them without paying much attention to the trains. Come on, this way. That's not what I wanted to show you guys. There's more but I'm already confused as is. Ryuji blurted out. I'm sure that's a default quality for you, Skull. Hey. What exactly are we here to see, Mona? Anne asked, wanting to get back on topic. It would be this right here, Morgana declared, stopping at the end of the platform and pointing at something straight ahead. The three looked up to see a wall now blocking the rest of the path. It was marked with strange details that glowed with an ominous red light. We're here for a wall. What's the point? Ryuji asked, scratching the top of his head. Now hold on. There might be more to this than the normal eye can see, Morgana said, glancing up at the dead end. Too bad Hiro's third eye thing was just a cover, huh? Third eye? Anne repeated, raising a brow in question. Oh, it's nothing. When Hiro and I went to go and make a deal with this crazy inventor girl, he had to make up a quirk to avoid suspicion, Morgana explained, looking back at Izuku for a moment. It's a good thing she didn't ask you to show it off. Then again, that kind of power would be pretty hard to test, huh? Yeah right, Izuku said, giving a nervous laugh and rubbing the back of his head. Ryuji went pale at the news. Oh man, you guys actually ended up going to see that crazy chick, of course. Her tech is incredibly advanced and could be useful to us when we're exploring palaces, Morgana said in confirmation. I don't know. Her equipment did look badass, but I had the worst feeling that her tests were gonna be dangerous as hell. Oh they are, trust me. Izuku got stuck in a tree and hurt himself pretty badly. Ryuji winced. You alright, dude? Why yes, just a little distracted by this area, Izuku lied, unsure what to say. I still haven't told them about the world in my dreams. With everything that's been happening, it kept slipping my mind. Yeah, I feel ya on that. So can we get out of here or what, cat? Ryuji asked, turning his attention to Morgana. Just one moment. Well it wouldn't do anything the last time I came down here, I want to see if that's changed. Morgana trailed off, walking up to the wall and placing a paw on it. The wall suddenly began to rumble along with the rest of the station. The thieves all stepped back and prepared for the worst. Not a moment later, the wall's centerpiece lifted up and the corners rolled back in, revealing a passageway going down. It opened, said Anne. Morgana smiled, just as I suspected. A new area has been confirmed in the depths. Updating guidance information. The metanav updated. Izuku fished into his coat pocket and looking at his phone. There's another floor now, looks like I was right all along. Before this wall would never budge, but I had the suspicion it was actually a door, Morgana said, looking back at his teammates. It would be strange if a place like Mementos was so shallow as to only have one floor like the one we previously explored. So you always knew it would be deeper, huh? Ryuji said, crossing his arms. Yeah. Now that Kamoshida's palace is gone and people are talking about us, I was hoping that something might have shifted here as well. How deep is it? Should we try to go in? Anne asked, looking at the others in thought. Let's not. We accomplished our mission for today, haven't we? It would be best not to drive around aimlessly, Morgana suggested, earning a nod of agreement from Izuku. Mona's right. We don't know what's down there and we might end up wasting unnecessary energy. We'll be coming back to train here in the future anyways, so we can wait until then to explore. Precisely. Let's head back for now and I'll explain more once we're out, Morgana said. With that settled, the four turned back around and got ready to leave. But Izuku hesitated for a moment, looking down in thought as Morgana's words echoed in his head. It might be hard to explain to them, but I need to be honest. I can't just hide it. It's not right to. Especially from them. Yo, Hiro. You alright? Ryuji called out, bringing Izuku out of his thoughts. You look a little lost. Is something wrong? Anne asked in concern, tilting her head. Izuku looked between his three friends and released a deep breath. Why yeah, there's something I need to tell you guys. But it might not be the easiest to explain, so that's everything that I know about that place. At least Anne, Ryuji and Morgana stared at Izuku in bewilderment. Once the group had gotten out of Mementos, they settled down in Shibuya Station's courtyard to hear what Izuku had to say. He explained to them everything about the Velvet Room. Its existence, Igor and the twins, the effect it has on personas and his friendships and so on. Izuku wasn't sure how they would react, but the faces they were making were about what he expected at least. Okay, wow. I wasn't expecting all that, Anne admitted, fumbling with the end of her hair. Yeah, no kiddin'. When you said you had something to tell us, I didn't think it'd be about some new crazy complicated shit. Ryuji kicked the ground in exasperation. Like, it's not the craziest thing to happen to us, but it's pretty up there. Why yeah, I can understand how you feel. It took me several visits to the Velvet Room to accept that it was real, too. But the proof of its existence is through my personas and my third eye. There's no denying it now, Izuku said before looking at Morgana. The cat seemed somewhat distracted, looking at the ground in thought. Morgana-san. Is everything alright? Huh? Oh yeah, just had a weird feeling after hearing all that, is all Morgana admitted, shaking his head before looking back up. But that's not important. So that power you mentioned, you really can do all those things? Morgana asked, understandably curious about what Izuku's power was capable of. That's right. I can do all of the things I listed off for Hatsume-san. It's also how I solved the puzzles in Kamoshida's palace and had personas other than the ones I captured. Oh, yeah. I thought it was strange that you had some new ones, but every time we saw it, it was during a fight, so I'd forget to ask after. We were in a pretty big hurry inside of Kamoshida's castle, too, Anne recalled, feeling a little dumb for not addressing it sooner. Man, how much more nuts can all this get? Ryuji grunted, scratching his head furiously as he tried to process it all. Backtracking, what's this about ruin? They haven't explained that to you in any more detail. Morgana asked, only for Izuku to shake his head. They keep being vague about it. All I know is that it's coming and that I can somehow prevent it by acting as a phantom thief. That's so crazy. Why not at least explain what it is at least? Anne snapped. Can't they give you some idea? I don't know, but I guess it works out for us. I was planning to be a phantom thief either way, Izuku laughed sheepishly. But it was soon replaced with a frown as his gaze trailed to the floor. But about the contracts that I mentioned, oh, right. So like when you make friends or something, it makes some sorta link? Ryuji asked, trying to sort out what Izuku explained to them. Why yeah, something like that. And I guess that every time I get closer with the person in that link it levels up. Izuku said, unsure how to explain that part or what it entailed. But I guess that each link has an arcana which are titled after tarot cards, I think. There are specific personas that match them and get stronger because of them. So then do you have a link with all of us? Anne asked curiously. Yes. Ryuji-senpai is chariot, you're the L-lovers, and Morgana-san is magician, Izuku explained, looking down in a bit of shame. I was afraid at first when these links started forming though. I mean, it's beneficial, but what's up? Isn't that a good thing? Ryuji asked, raising a brow in question. Well, I don't want you guys to think that's the only reason I'm friends with you. I mean, it helps, sure, but that's not why whoa, slow down, Izuku. You don't have to worry about that, Anne cut him off, causing Izuku to blink. You're one of the most sincere people I've ever met. There's no way you'd be faking the funk when it comes to making friends. Huh? Yeah man, you kiddin'? You're way too nice for that kinda crap. If you make friends and those links or whatever, we know you're not doing it just for some power-ups. It just makes them cooler. Ryuji reasoned, giving Izuku a reassuring grin and slapping his shoulder. I agree. We all know what kind of heart you have, Izuku. Don't ever doubt that, Morgana said, smiling up at Izuku as well. Why you guys? Izuku's eyes became high-powered fountains as he sobbed into his sleeve. Thank you, hey man, that's nothing to cry about. Ryuji laughed, shaking his head. But man. First mementos, and now this weird-ass velvet room thing. This ain't making any more sense than when we first learned about it. Well, at least regarding mementos, we still have some clues to its secrets, Morgana suggested, sitting up on his hind legs. Since it's the public's palace, I suspect that the reason it opened for us now rather than before when I was alone is because the public is somewhat aware of our presence. It's a good thing you know so much about it, at least. How come, though? Anne asked. I can't say for sure. My memory is still foggy on the details, Morgana admitted, looking somewhat down at the thought. All I know is that my answers lie in the depths of mementos and that I need to get down there no matter what. You think all the answers are in there for what happened to you? Izuku asked, earning a nod from Morgana in answer. Mementos isn't just the public's palace. It's the source of all palaces. Palaces like Kamoshida's with one ruler simply didn't exist until recently. Something is causing a great distortion in mementos and enabling this. If we can stop that, then my appearance just might. So you were looking for a hero too, huh? Anne asked, giving a sympathetic smile to the cat. I just needed pawns. You did mention that the first time around, huh? Well, I guess Izuku and I did promise to help with that, right? Ryuji said in understanding before looking at Izuku. That's right. You've helped us so much, Morgana-san. We'll do whatever we can to help you find your memories, Izuku declared, giving Morgana a confident grin. I'll help out too. Together we'll help you get back what you lost, okay? Anne said kindly. Morgana suddenly became shy, looking away from the group as he flustered up. Thanks, I'll be relying on you guys. Of course. Oh, but while we're on the topic, I do have one question, Anne began. Are you a boy or a girl? What? Morgana sputtered. I'm male, of course. I have to be. His voice can be confusing, but I'm pretty sure he's a guy. Morgana tries to act macho way too much, Ryuji chuckled, causing the cat to glare. Oh, but I do got a question about that velvet room thing. What is it? Izuku asked, blinking in surprise. Those twins, are they hot? Izuku gaped at his senior while Morgana sighed and Anne immediately elbowed Ryuji in the gut. Ow. What? Really? That's your question? What, I'm curious. Twins can be real ho-ow. Ryuji-senpai, Izuku mumbled, rubbing the back of his head sheepishly. I forgot to mention before, but the twins look like they're both 10. Oh well, that sucks. So much for your little twin fantasy, Morgana chuckled. It's probably good that they are though, if you think about it, Anne said, a small teasing smile on her lips. Izuku probably wouldn't be able to handle being around them otherwise. But oh yeah, good point. I would probably faint every time he saw him, Ryuji laughed, joining in on Anne's fun. Izuku gave it a moment of thought, sweat trailing down his cheeks as his shoulders slumped. Don't sweat it, dude. At least you don't end up like Morgana, who was practically drooling on himself, Ryuji chuckled, wrapping an arm around his shoulders as he looked at the cat. What? I resent that. I don't just drool over myself. Morgana complained, embarrassed as he recalled his first meeting with Anne. Alright, let's chill. It's starting to get late, so we should probably be heading back, Anne noted, the four looking up to see the sun beginning to set. Yeah, good point. Now that you all know about mementos, you can shift your focus to your studies. Then we can look for a big target to pursue. Damn it, you had to go and remind me of that, Ryuji groaned, hunching over in disappointment. Fine, I guess I'll study, don't worry too much, Ryuji-senpai. Tomorrow, maybe during lunch or after school, I can help you study for the tests the days after that, Izuku offered before looking at Anne. You too, Anne-senpai. Please do. Tomorrow's my English test, so it won't be a big deal, but I'd appreciate the help after that. Anne smiled. If you can help me pass just one of those tests, you'll be doing me a huge favor. Thanks, man, Ryuji grinned. Oh, of course. I'll try not to let you guys down. With that, the four went home for the night, getting some much-needed rest for the long week ahead of them. Chapter 21, Persona 5 Ost. Layer cake, are you sure we have enough money for more guns? I'm positive. If Iwai-sen hasn't increased the prices I saw in the catalog, we should at least be able to purchase Ryuji-senpai and Anne-senpai new firearms. We should also consider getting Kodo-sen a weapon in case she agrees to join us, too. Izuku suggested, holding his chin in thought. He followed the alley to Untouchable, his gaze focused on the ground rather than ahead of him. I'm surprised you have the energy for that. You had a lot to put up with when you were helping Ryuji and Lady Anne study, Morgana chuckled, causing a small bead of sweat to form on Izuku's head. As promised, Izuku met with Ryuji and Anne in the library after school to help them prepare for their upcoming exams. Looking over the material provided by their classes, Izuku thought it would be a simple review session for the both of them. Instead, he ended up teaching both of them all of the material they should have learned in class. While Izuku was happy to help, he would be lying if he said that the two hadn't made things difficult. Well, I think they learned a good amount. So long as they go over what I gave them tonight, tomorrow will just be review, Izuku said optimistically, silently praying that his friends would heed his advice and study when they got home. Lady Anne might try, but I don't know if dumb Ryuji will be committed enough. I hope you're wrong, Izuku sighed. He knew Ryuji well enough by now to half expect him to shirk his studies. Izuku pushed the shop's door open, looking to the front display for the shop owner. He stopped to blink when he realized that Iwai wasn't lounging in his usual spot behind the glass case. Hello. He called out, looking around the shop and noticing that it was empty. Oh. We should probably leave, Izuku, Morgana alerted him, the cat looking back at the door. I'm pretty sure he's closed right now. Izuku peered back, seeing that the open sign was facing in rather than out. You're right. He might not be in right now. Strange since he's always open around this time, Izuku said, sparing one last glance at the display before beginning to turn back. It was then that he noticed something on the counter covered by a loose cloth. Izuku stopped, raising a brow as he saw something stick out of the edge of the cloth. Judging from the small bit he could see, it looked like a model gun. Oh, was Iwai-san cleaning this? Izuku muttered to himself, moving curiously to the display. If it was a model handgun, Izuku supposed that it wouldn't be bad to take a quick look at it since he was there to browse the inventory. Moving the cloth aside though, Izuku and Morgana inhaled a breath. Resting on the counter was what looked like a real Colt 1911 semi-automatic handgun. It had a silvery gunmetal body and a surprising amount of heft when Izuku picked it up for closer inspection. The leather-decorated grip was also contoured and textured just like the pictures of real guns he saw online. This is, Izuku gasped, but a small etching on the side of the gun caught his eye. In small letters, he could see the common English inscription "Made in China" engraved on the barrel. Izuku quickly pushed the magazine release button on the side to confirm his suspicions. He was relieved to find that the clip was only large enough to hold BBs. It's fake after all, what a relief. Don't you know how to read, kid? Izuku jumped when he heard Iwai's voice, panicking and setting the gun back down on the display case. Looking up at the back area entrance, he watched Iwai enter sporting a glare that bore into Izuku and made him sweat. Sorry. I wasn't paying attention when I walked inside and I just got curious when I saw the gun. I thought it was real for a second, but tch. I thought I locked the damn thing, Iwai growled, scratching under his cap in frustration. Forget you saw this thing, got it? Huh. But it's just an airsoft gun, right? Izuku said, looking back down at the model gun only for Iwai to quickly cover it back up. It's not illegal to have one, even if it looks real. True, but that doesn't mean I want somebody spreading word that I got inventory like this. Some dumb kids might try and use them to rob people. Not to mention cops would try to use them against me like I made in the local villains and gangs. Izuku might have denied the possibility of such happening if he hadn't experienced that kind of corruption for himself. I understand. I won't tell anyone. Good, Iwai huffed. Now, if you wanna buy something, go ahead. I was about to reopen once I'd gotten everything put away. Okay. Can I see the catalog? Sure. Izuku took the folder from Iwai, poring over the pages as he looked for something suitable. Though looking at the quality of the pictured guns, it was hard to take his mind off the model gun he had seen. The more realistic the gun, the stronger its cognition is, and the more powerful it gets. If we got more weapons like that, we'd be at a huge advantage. I doubt I can afford it, but I have to try. Iwai-san, trust me, mumbles, you can't afford it. Izuku's shoulders slumped at his didn't expect to be rejected so quickly. Still, for the sake of his team and their safety, he persisted. Maybe, but I'd like to see more like it. What you had was top quality. It took me a moment to realize it was just a model, too, Izuku suggested, causing the shop owner to shift his gaze back to him. I know this might be asking a lot, but could I see more like it? Even if I can't afford it now, maybe in the future I could. Iwai's eyes narrowed in suspicion, causing Izuku to twitch under his gaze. He then spared a glance at his door, making sure no one else was outside or close by. Alright, kid. Spill it. Who are you? Huh? Izuku blinked, confused by the question. Are you really just some gun enthusiast? You're pretty damn young for it. You seem to have a good head on your shoulders. You even helped Kaoru out. Sure, you're pretty awkward and stuttery, but most kids your age are into heroes rather than guns. Izuku couldn't help but flinch at the accuracy of that statement. But I am. That's why I can't get that model gun out of my head. Please, let me see more like it, Iwai-san. He exclaimed, bowing his head low in a desperate bid to win him over. Silence was his only answer at first. Sweat trailed down Izuku's cheek as he quietly prayed that he wouldn't be shut down. His prayers were answered when he heard an amused chuckle from Iwai. Man, you're one weird kid. But Iwai stopped, eyes narrowing in thought as he looked down and rubbed the stubble on his chin. Wait a sec, this might actually work for both of us. Huh. Heh. Yeah. This might be perfect, actually. Iwai looked back up at Izuku with a smirk and a devious glint in his eye. It was disconcerting to see the normally aloof shop owner with that kind of expression. Alright, kid. I believe you. If you're that set on seeing more like that, I'd be willing to show you. But affordability is still a problem, don't you think? What'd be the point in window shopping? I suppose, Izuku mumbled, unsure where Iwai was going with this. The prices are up in the hundreds of thousands of yen. Some even get in the million range, dependent on how I feel. Izuku's eyes bulged out of their sockets. He knew they'd be more than he could afford, but that was far higher than what he ever would have guessed. But I'm a reasonable man. I've been known to compromise from time to time. And if you were, say, an employee of mine, I might just be willing to make quite a few exceptions. Izuku's quirked an eyebrow as he followed Iwai's line of thought. You want me to work for you? Not in the conventional sense, but yeah. I might not need help maintaining the store, but there's plenty else you can do. Cleaning the shelves when I don't feel like it, sorting through inventory in the back. Iwai began to list off before looking directly in Izuku's eyes. Helping me with personal errands and covering up evidence on my custom models. Those last two jobs were certainly suspicious. And in exchange for your work, I'll let you in on my special menu. And I'll give you a bargain deal on what I've got that you wouldn't be able to find anywhere else, Iwai finished, crossing his arms over his chest. Not a bad deal, eh? Would you say? Izuku wasn't sure if he would call it a good deal. He had considered Iwai a bit shady as Ryuji had said before, but this sudden interest in hiring Izuku as his employee was beyond suspicious. Still, Iwai-san doesn't seem like a bad person, I think. And we will really need those kind of weapons when we infiltrate the next palace. But just tell me one thing. What? I know you said this before, but I need to hear it again. You don't sell your special inventory to criminals, right? Izuku asked, meeting Iwai's gaze as he dared to show courage. The people that would use them to hurt others. They might be fake, but they can obviously be used for intimidation. I wouldn't be able to work for you if you sold guns to people like that. But if you can tell me honestly that you don't, I'll take your deal." Both of their gazes hardened as they scrutinized each other for any sign of weakness or hesitation. Izuku could feel his palms getting clammy and hear his heart pounding in his ears in this deafening silence. Even Morgana seemed to be holding his breath. But Izuku stood his ground. This was important. He couldn't work for IY with a clear conscience if he didn't. The irony behind the demand wasn't lost on Izuku. Even if he and the Phantom Thieves wanted to do good, they'd always be villains in the eyes of the law. Finally, IY smirked. "You're a lot braver than I thought, Mumbles. Dealing with punks below your grade was one thing, but I didn't think you'd have the balls to make a demand like that. But you don't gotta worry. I can honestly say that I don't sell my special inventory to some dumb street punks or high-class criminals. I vet everyone that I sell that stuff to. It's usually just high-rolling collectors or competitive airsoft players. The only reason I need you to hide evidence is like what I said before. Police'll just find reasons to bust me even if I didn't do shit." Izuku could see the honesty in IY's expression. The man was careful and shady, but honest. Besides, he of all people could understand the shopkeeper's concerns. He released a deep sigh of relief before nodding. "Okay. I'll work for you. Heh. Then it looks like we'll be doing business together. Welcome aboard, Mumbles," IY chuckled, nodding in acceptance. Izuku was still on the fence about the conditions of this partnership, but for now, they were acceptable. Persona 5 Ost. "The spirit, smash I am thou art I thou hast acquired a new vow. It shall become the wings of rebellion that breaketh thy chains of captivity. But the birth of the hanged man persona, I have obtained the winds of blessing that shall lead to freedom and new power." Izuku felt a faint sense of deja vu as the card materialized before his eyes. This was a lot like his deal with Takemi. Both were up to some rather dubious activities and were giving him deals on their inventory in exchange for helping them out. He wasn't sure how to feel about being used to these kinds of shady dealings, but they worked out for him all the same. This should be obvious, but just so we're clear. Keep quiet about whatever we do here. Don't go running off and telling people about this deal or your job. Got it? I don't want anyone else in on my personal business." Izuku nodded again. "Good. Then as a token of our partnership, feel free to take this gun." What? Really? Yeah. The guy I was making it for took too long to come and pick it up anyway. I'm tired of waiting and I don't need to hold on to something like this forever. Feel free to take it." IY uncovered the model gun and handed it to Izuku. The green-haired teen swallowed a lump in his throat before taking it, studying every nook and cranny to see all the fine details. "You do as I ask and work hard, you'll see more where that came from and then some." Izuku felt himself beam as IY slid a case large enough to hold the gun towards him. Thank you, IY-san. This is a really good model. Nice to know you're grateful. I'm sure you're in school, so I won't go demanding you show up every day. I'll shoot you a message whenever I feel like I need the help." With that, Izuku and IY exchanged emails before heading out for the night. Izuku waited until he was out of the alleyway to lean against a nearby wall and breathe yet another sigh of relief, the tension of his encounter finally draining out of him. "Man. I can't help but wonder if you're extremely lucky or unlucky," Morgana said, popping out of the bag once again. "I think it's a combination of the two. Become a phantom thief, huh?" It had been a few days since Izuku made her the offer. When she couldn't decide after thinking on it all day, she thought a night's sleep would help her relax and make the right choice. Instead, she remained conflicted and indecisive. There were a number of reasons that doing so wouldn't be in her best interest. She had gone over them all one by one in an attempt to convince herself that rejecting the offer was the right choice. But in her heart, Makoto couldn't help but tremble with anticipation. She desperately wanted to be one of them. To be able to act on her own justice. To be the hero that she always wanted to be. To stop the corruption that spat on the legacy her father left behind. To be of actual use to somebody. Persona 5 Ost. "Days of Sisters, are you alright, Makoto? You've been spacing out again." Makoto was startled by her sister's voice, jumping before looking at Sei. There wasn't concern on her sister's face, just a moderate bit of confusion. "Why yes, sorry. Just going over some of the material for my classes in my head. Exams coming up soon, after all," Makoto replied, coughing into her fist. "Ah, I see. Good," Sei nodded. "I'm glad that the incident at your school hasn't distracted you from what's important. Keep at it." "Alright." Makoto was almost disappointed that her sister didn't push the subject harder. Sei was also so wrapped up in her work that it was nearly impossible to have a simple conversation. But the mere mention of the school incident made Makoto's thoughts drift back to the officers who spoke with Kabeakawa. Just the thought of it made a pit form in her stomach. "Hey sis." Sei looked up from her plate again. "Have you spoken to any of Dad's old police friends in a while?" Sei tensed at the question, an irritated expression coloring her features. Every now and then. Usually only in cases involving them that I'm presented with. Why? Well, with the school incident happening and all, I was just curious if any of them were part of the investigation. Makoto had to approach this carefully. If Sei sniffed even the slightest bit of suspicion, she would end the discussion in a heartbeat as a useless distraction. No. As far as I know, things are being left to the local precinct. None of them worked in that area. I see. That's good. I was a little worried, Makoto breathed out, causing Sei to raise a brow. Why would you be worried about that? Oh, it's nothing. I just heard a rumor that some of the cops in that area might have been aware of Kamoshida's victims, and how absurd. Do you really think something that egregious would be going on? Sei snapped, narrowing her eyes at her sister. I'm just saying it's a rumor I heard. I mean I was suspicious because I would have thought at least one of the students suffering might. It's just another student trying to drum up needless amounts of drama. There's no need to turn this case into some grand conspiracy of corruption. But sis, what if I think you need to leave the investigations to the adults? Focus on your studies. This entire debacle has nothing to do with you. Wasting time on wild fantasies like this won't get you into college. Sei was now glowering at Makoto. It had been ages since Makoto had seen her that heated about anything. Makoto wilted under her sister's gaze, lowering her head and giving a slow nod. Why yes sis. Sorry, good. No more talk about that, then. The sooner that case is handled, the better, Sei huffed, looking back down at her plate and forking the last bit of food on her plate into her mouth. With an unceremonious drop of her fork, Sei stood from the table, still heated from the exchange. I'm taking a shower first. I have to go back to the office a little later. Okay, Makoto mumbled, poking at the remaining bit of rice on her plate. It was pointless to fight back against her sister's onslaught of words. Even if Makoto explained what she heard, would Sei even listen? Sei only seemed to care about her job and getting a promotion. But still, is that just how everyone else views this case? A distraction. Aside from the blatantly obvious things that were being pointed out in Kamoshida's case, was there really anyone digging deeper into this? Kabayakawa would normally be considered an accessory to whatever crimes Kamoshida committed. Parents would be humiliated for their failure to protect their children by allowing it to continue. But interviews with students and staff had already finished. And the only thing that could be called an internal investigation on the matter was assigned to her by Kabayakawa. And all he was looking for were the phantom thieves. Midori, he and his friends really did end up being the only ones to care enough to fight back despite being ignored. And they're going to keep fighting for people who have fallen under the wayside. So maybe I should, too. Damn it, my legs are too damn tight, I ain't moving like before. Ryuji coughed, leaning on his knees as sweat trickled down his face. Wow, that's kind of hard to believe, Izuku huffed out, placing his hands behind his head. You were running faster than the last time we worked out. I couldn't keep up this time. Izuku and Ryuji rested in the shade of the faux blonde secret training spot. Izuku had moved their study session to lunch so that he could quickly drill his friends on the material they went over the previous day. Much to his chagrin, both teens only managed to sink in an hour of study and before letting themselves get distracted. So, hoping to try and convince them to try harder, Izuku offered to do something with them in exchange for promising to study that night. Testing started tomorrow, after all. Anne made it simple. Buy her sweets from the cafeteria. She called them her brain food. Ryuji, on the other hand, wanted to work out together again like before. Izuku had no problem with either task. In fact, he looked forward to hanging out with Ryuji one-on and again. I've been doing a bit of running on my own, but damn, I guess not enough yet, Ryuji said, pushing off his to stand up straight. I used to be able to go for way longer than this and faster. I didn't use my quirk or nothing, either. That woulda felt like cheating. Izuku grinned. That's pretty amazing. No wonder you were on the national level. Yeah, but I guess I let myself go for way too long. Might be a while before I'm back in top shape. Especially with the way my knee acts up, Ryuji sighed in disappointment, rolling his shoulders. The hell do you need to get back into shape for? Persona 5 asked. Suspicion, Izuku snapped to attention and turned to see 4 students approach them. All of them were wearing Shujin tracksuits. Sparing a glance at Ryuji, he could see the faux blonde shrink a little in their presence. Nakeoka Takeshi, Ryuji mumbled, taking a step back as they approached. Been a while, Sakamoto. Running again? We saw you from the second floor. The darker-skinned boy, Nakoka, asked. His tone was less than friendly as far as Izuku was concerned. Are you planning to try and crawl your way back to the track team? Takeshi added with a bitter, resentful laugh. Ryuji winced. And no. Hell no. I wouldn't try so there from the track team, too. Izuku looked at the boys, a worried frown crossing his lips. Yeah, sure, Nakeoka huffed before his eyes trailed to Izuku. What are you doing hanging out with this first year? And again, I guess no one who knew you before would still be hanging out with you, huh? Careful, first year. This guy's known for flying off the handle. He'll punch you real quick if you make him mad. Takeshi spat. Ryuji clenched his teeth. Hey, come on, you're wrong, Izuku snapped, causing Ryuji to pause. Ryuji-senpai has been looking out for me since I came to this school. He wouldn't do that to someone who didn't have it coming. Izuku Ryuji mumbled in surprise. Wait a sec, he's the transfer student Nakaoka pointed out, a small sneer on his lips. No wonder you're hanging out with Sakamoto. I heard you were pretty violent yourself. Though you don't really look like it. Hey, that's enough, Ryuji growled, taking a step in front of Izuku. You guys can talk all the shit you want to me. I deserve it. But don't go talking shit about my pal here. He ain't done nothing to deserve that. Takeshi and Nakaoka took a step back, surprised by his retaliation. The two quickly got over it, clicking their tongues. So what, you gonna hit us now? It must run in the family if you're that quick to get violent. Wasn't your dad the same way? Like father, like son, right? Nakaoka laughed. Ryuji trembled as he stamped on the ground with his good leg, his right hand already balled into a fist. That's got nothing to do with this. Izuku quickly moved between them, putting a hand on Ryuji's shoulder. Don't let it get to you, Ryuji-senpai. Calm down. Ryuji looked down at the green-haired teen and felt his head begin to cool, his shoulders relaxing and his curled fist loosening up. You're right. Izuku smiled up at Ryuji in relief before turning a stern glare back to Nakaoka. That was crossing the line. Whatever happened in the past, that had nothing to do with it. You don't know anything about it. We were all suffering under Kamoshida like he was. He was the one who couldn't hold his shit together and fucked everything up. Nakaoka snapped, glaring up at Ryuji again. We could have been national champions if it wasn't for him. Look, man, back then, I don't want to hear your excuses. We were in it together, but you let everyone down. Now we're stuck trying to pick up the pieces, Nakaoka huffed, taking a step forward. I honestly thought you were our teammate. But you let us all down. Ryuji didn't answer, each word Nakaoka spoke digging the pit of guilt in his gut deeper. Izuku wanted to speak on his behalf again, but wasn't sure what he could say. This all happened before they were friends. And it was personal for everyone involved. He wasn't sure he had a right to say anything here. When Ryuji didn't answer the accusation, Nakaoka huffed and turned his back. That's all I have to say to you. I'm out of here, he said, moving to walk off with his crew. Oh, and by the way. We've been using this spot to work out. Because, you know, we can't do it in the field anymore. Thanks to a certain someone we know, Takeshi added with a glare. So stay clear of here. You don't really need it, anyway, Nakaoka spat before finally leaving with Takeshi close behind him. Ryuji and Izuku watched them walk off, the faux blonde releasing a tense breath once they were out of view. Sorry you had to see that. Izuku's gaze fell to the ground. And no, it's fine. I just wished I could have done more for you. Nah, you did enough. If it wasn't for you, I woulda put Nakaoka on his ass for what he said about my dad, Ryuji admitted, rubbing the back of his head sheepishly. I really haven't changed since then, huh? Ryuji-senpai still, I gotta hand it to you. You really helped me keep my cool. I'm glad I had you there with me to face those guys, Ryuji gave his friend a dumb grin. Thanks for having my back. Even if his contribution was weak, Ryuji's words brought some relief to Izuku. We promised to have each other's backs, so I'll keep doing what I can. Same here. The faux blonde laughed, raising a hand for a high five. Izuku quickly returned it, but was mildly surprised by how much force Ryuji put behind it, causing him to swing his arm back and blow on his now stinging hand. But Izuku laughed along despite the painful high five. If he could help Ryuji just by being there so he wasn't facing his troubles alone, then he would be more than happy to do it. Smash! Izuku winced when he heard the chain snap in his ear. Chariot Link. Rank 3. Despite the abrupt timing of the Link's appearance, Izuku smiled. These kind of things shouldn't be made so obvious, but it's nice to know we've become closer. Man, you shoulda said more. Ryuji and Izuku paused, looking back to see Nakaoka and Takeshi arguing further down the hall. Huh. You got a problem now, I guess they're not as tight-knit as I thought. Now they're at each other's throats, Ryuji sighed, both amused and saddened by the scene. Well, not my problem. I don't think I'd be able to help much, so I'll stay out of it. Why yeah, that might be best, Izuku chuckled sheepishly. 3 days of exams passed by slowly. But the amount of work and studying they had to do for each exam, Izuku and the others didn't try to waste time after school, instead using the time to study together. Izuku invited Makoto to join them as well. Considering her workload, she was only able to join them one of the days. Even then, they spent little time doing that, as the exams left them all mentally drained. Anne and Ryuji more so than their junior. Izuku felt confident in the answers he filled in for each exam. They were more exhausting in length rather than difficulty for Izuku. Ryuji on the other hand, man, I'm so tired, my brain hurts, I'm so glad today's the last day, only one more exam, and then we have off tomorrow. Though I'll probably take the day to recharge and sleep, Izuku chuckled, smiling at the faux blonde. Did you get any more studying in? Ryuji. Still studying? I doubt that, Morgana teased, causing the faux blonde to wince. Shut up. I did a little bit, I was gonna stay up and play games instead, but I felt I would have been wasting your help if I did that, Ryuji sighed, wearily rubbing his head before grinning. Thanks for all the help, by the way. I don't know if I did good or not, but I made sure I got through each exam to the end. Same here. Thanks, Anne said, yawning as she approached the three. I felt a little more confident during exams thanks to your notes. A lot of the work felt way less tedious to go over. Oh, of course. I'm happy to help. Izuku said, blushing in embarrassment at the praise as he rubbed his neck. Sadly, I don't think any amount of simplification would make it easier for Ryuji to remember, Morgana said, taking another pot shot at the faux blonde. Hey, F off. My brain is bigger than yours right now, you know you don't got room to talk. Guys, stop it. It's a bit early to argue, Izuku said, once again playing peacemaker. Yeah, can it would you? I don't want to forget everything that Anne trailed off, a small shiver going up her spine. She snapped her head around, searching the crowd warily. Ryuji raised a brow. Something wrong? You look spooked. And no, just I don't know. Nothing, I guess, Anne muttered unconvincingly, causing her three companions to look at each other in confusion. If something's bothering you, you can tell us, Izuku suggested, his lip curling down in worry. Well, I'll tell you on the train, okay? Anne said in a whisper, causing Ryuji and Izuku to blink but nod in agreement. They didn't wait long for their line to pull into the station, the three piling on with the rest of the crowd. Izuku and Ryuji made sure to stay close to Anne, though Izuku struggled to keep his composure even though he was behind her. The fact that they had little room with so many people on the train didn't help. I think there's a guy stalking me, Anne whispered suddenly, causing Izuku to forget his current nervousness. What? Who would dare stalk Lady Anne? Though I suppose I can't totally blame them, Morgana whispered, poking his nose out of Izuku's bag. Who is it? Have you seen them? Izuku asked, taking the situation very seriously. Are you sure you're not just imagining things? Ryuji asked with little interest, causing Anne to glare back at him. I don't know. But I could swear I've seen him around before. It feels way too weird to just be coincidence. Oh, okay. Do you see him now? Izuku asked, trying to approach this with tact. He got on in one of the doors further down. You can't see him right now, but I know he's on. Okay. We'll see how far he follows you. If he follows us off the train, we'll decide what to do from there. The train soon stopped at Shibuya Station, letting the three off and head for the escalator. Anne kept an eye out for her supposed stalker, widening her eyes when she caught sight of him a ways back from them. He got off on our line too. This is bad, right? Anne asked, looking at Izuku for guidance. Maybe. It may just be coincidence, but we should find out for sure. Izuku trailed off, tilting his head and holding his chin in thought. We could Izuku and Anne looked at the yawning Ryuji in clear disappointment. Despite their worries, he still seemed disinterested as before. At least act like you care. Anne snapped, placing her hands on her hips. Ugh, fine. Ryuji scratched the back of his head tiredly before suddenly walking ahead of Anne and Izuku. Come on. The two blinked in surprise but quickly followed after him. Izuku waited around the corner of the tunnel exit, Ryuji on the opposite end, with Anne standing alone as bait a few meters ahead of them. It was a simple plan by Ryuji. Fish the supposed stalker out by leaving Anne in the open. Nothing complicated, yet as effective as it needed to be. I don't like leaving Lady Anne alone like this, Morgana whispered in Izuku's ear. We're right here, Morgana-san. Nothing's going to happen to her, Izuku reassured, keeping his eyes forward as he waited for anyone to approach the platinum blonde. After another moment, a lone boy stepped off the escalator. They couldn't make out his full detail from their position, but his gaze was definitely set on Anne. He slowly began to step forward, a hand reaching out from his side toward the platinum blonde. Izuku spared a glance at Ryuji, and the two nodded, quickly jogging up in front of him and cutting the teen off. Anne quickly whipped around, now taking a look at her supposed stalker with the other two. Izuku couldn't help but raise a brow. When most people picture stalkers, they're usually older men or sweaty creeps who look like they hadn't left their house in weeks. Izuku knew this wasn't always the case, of course, but looking at their perp, it was hard to picture him as a stalker. He was a pale-skinned young man around Anne and Ryuji's age with slender, handsome features. He had short dark blue hair that stopped at his neck. He wore a white uniform button-up shirt, though Izuku didn't recognize the emblem on his breast pocket. He wore black slacks and loafers, with a large ring of keys hanging from his belt. Despite the situation, the pale-skinned teen looked at Izuku and Ryuji in confusion, lowering his arm with a curious look on his face. Ryuji and Izuku took a moment to look him up and down, looking for any of the telltale signs stalker. Aside glances, traces of drool, sweaty, anxious palms, conspicuous gloves, pictures, or cameras, but they found nothing. Ryuji looked back at Anne. Are you sure you're not just being insecure? What I'm not that I'm sorry, but is something the matter? The boy asked this time, causing the three to snap their eyes back forward. Irritated, Anne slipped past Ryuji and Izuku, pointing a finger in his face. That's my line. You're the one who's been stalking me. Anne accused. Stalking you? Why, that's preposterous. The teen dismissed, pushing a strand of hair out of his face. His voice was silky smooth, without an inkling of guilt or apprehension. Then why are you following me? I know I saw you trailing behind us ever since the first station. Anne declared, gritting her teeth in irritation. Izuku and Ryuji moved to her sides, watching him in case he tried anything funny. Well, that's because he trailed off, his attention pulled away by the honking of a car's horn. The four turning to the street to see a black sedan pulling up next to them. The back passenger window rolled down to reveal an elderly gentleman. His hair was long in the back and tied in an unkempt ponytail. He had an aged, wrinkled face with a thin, grey mustache on his lips and a puff of beard on his chin. He wore an olive-colored haori over a teal kimono. My, I was wondering why you left the car. So this is where your passion led, the elderly man said with a gentle smile. Ah, sensei, the strange boy called out to the elderly man with familiarity. At least you were able to catch her. All's well that ends well, I suppose, the gentleman laughed gently. Sensei. Anne repeated in confusion. Ah, forgive me. You see, I saw you passing by from our car. I couldn't help myself and gave chase. I didn't even notice Sensei calling out to me. Thank goodness I was able to catch up to you, the strange teen explained, though it didn't help to explain why. Okay, Anne mumbled, rubbing the back of her head. But why? Why are you so interested in Anne-senpai for? Izuku asked, raising a brow in question. She is the woman I've been searching for all this time. She is the only one who can fill this void. I once saw her in a restaurant and felt my passion burn, but missed the chance to speak with her. But to have found her again so soon must be fate pushing us together. He exclaimed passionately, taking a step closer to Anne. Please, won't you wait a minute. This is really be the model for my next painting, that silenced the three, taking a moment to process his request. Huh? Persona 5 asked. My homie, model. Anne repeated. All that I've drawn up to this point has felt empty. I lack the proper inspiration to feel fulfilled as I work. But upon seeing you, I felt my passion return with a furious blaze. This man is highly suspicious. Morgana huffed, kicking around in Izuku's shoulder bag. Yeah, this seems like some sorta shady business recruiting, Ryuji mumbled in suspicion. So will you aid me? Please, what do you say? Yusuke asked again, ignoring Ryuji's presence. Hold your horses, man. Who are you, anyway? Ryuji snapped, stepping in front of Anne to put distance between them. Oh, where are my manners? I'm a second year at Kasei High's Fine Arts Division. My name is Yusu Kitagawa, he explained, taking a step forward and nudging Ryuji out of the way. Anne took a step back despite this, still overwhelmed by his offer. I am a pupil of Madaram Sensei's who is being allowed residence at his studio. I'm striving to become an artist. Anne gasped. Wait, do you mean that Madaram? The one who was on Good Morning Japan the other day? The very same, Yusu confirmed. You know who that is? Ryuji asked. He was introduced as a super famous Japanese-style artist recognized around the world. Anne explained, though Izuku felt a small sense of déjà vu. Madaram was the name of the man who destroyed Armamento's target's future, but that seems way too convenient to be the same person, right? Yusuke. The elderly man in the car called out. I'll be right there. Yusuke answered, suddenly looking a bit rushed. So that's Madaram? Ryuji questioned, though Yusuke's focus was back on Anne. Madaram Sensei's exhibition will begin at the department store near the station starting tomorrow. I'll be there to help out on opening day. I'd like for you to come by. It'd be great if you could give me your answer in regards to being my model then. He spared a glance at Ryuji and Izuku, a more obligatorily courteous expression crossing his features. I doubt either of you are interested in the fine arts, but I'll provide you with tickets as well. If only to help motivate her to accept my proposal. That was really blunt, Izuku thought to himself, feeling a bead of sweat roll down his cheek. I do hope you'll come by. Please seriously consider my offer. Good day, Yusuke said, turning back to the car before sparing Anne a smile. She didn't answer immediately, the three watching as he climbed into the car and drove off with Madaram. Well, that was strange, Ryuji huffed, unsure what to make of the encounter. You're not actually going tomorrow, are you? Actually, I think I will, Anne answered with a thoughtful hum. Huh? Izuku and Ryuji blurted, shocked by her sudden interest. Oh crap, we've gotta go. We're gonna be late. Anne exclaimed, looking at her watch before quickly running off. Ah shit. She's right. We gotta huff it. Ryuji declared, seeing the time displayed on his phone before running after her. Oh okay. Izuku quickly followed after. Are you guys seriously ignoring what just happened? How dare this Yusu Kitagawa pursue Lady Anne? Morgana complained, poking his head out of the bag despite the fact that Izuku started running. I'll remember his face. My Hero Academia asked. Unwind, it's finally over. Anne stretched out, a relieved smile on her face. Finally over, Ryuji grumbled, far less enthusiastic by comparison. I'm glad you both made it through. How do you think you did on the last exams? Izuku asked, in good spirits considering what little trouble he had with his own. Not too bad. Thanks again for your help, Anne smiled, giving him a thumbs up. Great. I guess that means I'll be the only one who failed, huh? Ryuji sighed, rubbing his neck tiredly. Sorry if your help ends up going to waste, Izuku. I'm sure Izuku wasn't expecting much. Don't worry, Morgana answered before the green-haired teen could, immediately poking fun at the faux blonde. Shut up. What's done is done. Either way, our scores will be out next week. So instead of worrying about what's done, why don't we focus on our next target? Ryuji suggested, pulling out his phone. Oh? Anything new on the site? Anne asked. No, not really. I've been browsing it all week while studying, but nothing really big. People are starting to post less, too, Ryuji admitted in disappointment. Well, we knew we wouldn't get a big target that easily, Izuku said, but kept an optimistic smile. But we shouldn't let that stop us. Heroes do small jobs like cleaning up parks and helping out with smaller jobs all the time. We might not be able to become big yet, but we can work slowly with smaller shadow cases in mementos. That's the spirit. I won't see us become a one-hit wonder either. Even if we have to do a bunch of odd jobs before our big catch, we should. Morgana encouraged. Yeah, you guys are right. No need to get worked up about it now, Anne agreed, giving a smile in agreement. Hey, why don't we go get some lunch? We've got money left over from the medal, right? Yeah, we still have plenty. I think lunch would be a good way to celebrate exams ending, Izuku nodded. Oh, then let's get some sushi. Or wait. Some domestic raised deal. We don't have that much, Ryuji-senpai. Izuku laughed sheepishly. He had to keep their inventory and medicine in mind for future mementos and palace visits, after all. Yeah, no kidding. It'll probably be a while before we eat like we did at that buffet again, Anne grumbled, the memory causing her to long for it. Oh, plus we've got those tickets to Madaram's exhibit. Oh wait, that's tomorrow though. So you're really going to that, huh? Ryuji asked, mildly surprised. Of course. We got free tickets, and this Madaram guy is supposed to have really amazing art. Anne said, grinning with anticipation. Wait, don't tell me you're really going there for that Yusuke guy. Was it love at first sight? Morgana gasped, fearing the worst had come to pass. No, it's nothing like that. Anne dismissed, rolling her eyes. Oh of course. What a foolish thought, right? Morgana laughed uneasily, feeling embarrassed. Smooth, dude, said Ryuji. Aside from the art, I want to scope out this Madaram guy. We did hear his name in mementos, after all, Anne pointed out, causing Izuku and Ryuji to raise a brow. You really think it's the same guy, though? Ryuji asked curiously. It does seem hard to believe. If so, that would be awfully convenient, Izuku suggested, only for Anne to shrug. Who knows? It could just be a coincidence, but we might as well check it out. It's not like we have any other targets to look at, right? Izuku and Ryuji looked at each other and shrugged. She wasn't wrong, after all. So, you guys want to come along? He did give me 2 extra tickets, Anne asked, looking at the two expectantly. A fine arts exhibit, huh? Ryuji drawled out, the idea sounding more boring than anything to him. I don't really know much about art, but I wouldn't mind going. And if it really does turn into a case, we should all work together on it, Izuku smiled, nodding in agreement. We should definitely have all hands on deck. I have a feeling that Lady Anne's intuition may be on the mark for us, Morgana chimed in. Besides, appreciating the fine arts builds character. As phantom thieves, we should also be able to tell real art from fakes. Right. Well, I guess if everyone's going, Ryuji conceded in the end. Then it settled. We'll meet at the exhibit tomorrow. Anne declared, excitedly swinging her arms back and forth at her side. Going to an art exhibit really makes us sound mature though, huh? Well, at least you're happy about it, Izuku laughed. But before that, let's go get some lunch. Sounds good to me. Ryuji agreed, the four moving to step back out of Shibuya Station. After reaching the top entrance though, they could hear a commotion down the street, the cheers and whoops of mainly men echoing in the distance. "What's going on?" Anne asked, tilting her head in question. "Well, it's on the way to the main street." "Might as well find out," Ryuji shrugged, walking toward the crowd out of curiosity. Izuku and Anne followed, seeing no reason not to. As they approached, the uproar of cheers grew louder. Accompanying it though, they could hear pop music playing over the crowd. It was similar to what most idols would play when performing live or online. Was there supposed to be a live event in Shibuya today? Anne asked, raising a brow as they stopped just close enough to the crowd to not be caught up in the mass of fans. "Not that I heard. Seems strange that there'd be one right on the sidewalk, too," Ryuji pointed out, scratching his head in wonder. "We love you, Pop Step, you're so gorgeous." Pop Step. That sounds familiar. Izuku trailed off in thought, looking around to see if he could peek past the crowd. He soon noticed that their heads were tilted skyward, shifting his gaze up and widening his eyes. Look. Up there." Anne and Ryuji looked up, widening their eyes as they saw a girl falling through the air. Holy shit, she's falling. What the heck is everyone?" Just as the girl fell past the crowd, they immediately saw her bounce back through the air. The three gawked at the display. "Come on everybody, let's hear those voices Pop Step," the crowd cheered as the thieves jumped in surprise. Wait, what just happened?" "She's completely fine," Ryuji cried out, a brow raised in confusion. It must be her quirk that protects her. I guess it's not flight, but something that allows her to bound safely despite the height," Izuku explained, watching the girl closer this time. "Wow, that's pretty awesome. It certainly seems like a cool quirk for an idol to use as a gimmick for their show," Anne praised, watching as Pop Step descended again before immediately bouncing back through the air. "Interesting. So this is what an idol is in Japan, huh?" Morgana said, popping his head out to observe for himself. Now I remember. I saw an article on her a while back." Izuku said as the realization hit him. "She's actually performing illegally and using her quirk without approval. She performs in a lot of random spots to avoid getting caught by the police. An illegal idol, huh? That's a surprise," and HMM', smiling up at Pop Step in admiration. "The idol scene is pretty tough, so I'm sure she's had trouble breaking into it on her own. Still, I have to give it to her. She hasn't let that stop her from being what she wants to be." With their interest piqued and their fears washed away, the group stood closer to watch Pop Step's performance. "You know, using her flashy quirk as a draw is pretty smart, but she's actually not that great of a singer," Anne declared with a bit of disappointment. No kiddin'. But check out her outfit and you'll see the actual draw," Ryuji said, a cheeky grin on his lips. Izuku took a closer look at Pop Step as she sailed through the air, getting a better look at her appearance. She had long poofy pink hair that was tied up in twin tails. She had a black painted mask over her eyes, likely to help conceal her actual identity. What stuck out though was her outfit, which made Izuku blush a bit. It was a revealing one-piece black leotard, her thighs and hips exposed under a black super miniskirt with knee-high black boots, elbow-length fingerless gloves and a heart-shaped breast window. Makes sense, don't it? Most of the crowd are guys, after all. "Geez, don't get stuck being one of her fans, too," Anne grumbled, elbowing him in the side when she saw the smirk on his face. "She's pretty good at drawing a crowd, at least. You have to give her that." The three turned to see a young man approaching them. He looked a bit older than they were, in the face at least. He was around Ryuji's height, with tired eyes and short dark brown hair. He wore a yellow zip-up hoodie with the word blast plastered across the chest in big bold letters, along with a simple pair of black slacks and white tennis shoes. He looked at the group before rubbing his head sheepishly. Sorry if I'm bothering you while you watch the show. I'm the so-called bouncer and lookout for this concert. You guys seemed pretty chill, so I thought I'd take a break by you. Don't worry about it. We just stopped by to take a look. This crowd does seem pretty rowdy," Anne said, glancing back at the crowd mostly populated by men. "How many bouncers do you guys have?" Well, technically two, but the other guy doesn't show up to these things that often. "It's not like she pays us, after all," he admitted, looking more run down as he talked about it. "Having to look out for rowdy fans and the cops can be pretty tiresome." Seems like you have your work cut out for you," Izuku said in sympathy. It was hard not to feel bad for the lone bouncer given the size of the crowd. The favors you do for friends, right? He laughed with little energy. "Hey, watch where you're stepping. I'm trying to get a good view of Pop Step. How about you don't trip over nothing, asshole?" The bouncer looked ahead, grumbling as he saw two enthusiastic fans start fighting. "Welp, back to work. At least I got a little break, good luck," Anne said, waving goodbye as he trotted toward the argument. She should really find that guy help. "Yeah, no kiddin'. He looks like he's barely standing," Ryuji huffed, raising a brow as he watched the bouncer get between the two fans. "How you saying something now, dead eyes, please stop fighting." You're gonna ruin the event for others. Just back off and get out of the way. Despite his title, the bouncer was having a lot of trouble handling the two fans, recoiling as their anger was directed toward him. Izuku soon realized that the bouncer wasn't the best at his job. But as he looked on, his attention was torn away by another interesting sight. Several police cars fast approaching from the intersection. Their sirens were off, probably to catch Pop Step off guard. Bouncer-san. There are some police cars coming. Izuku called out, causing Ryuji and Ann to look down the street in panic. Despite his calls, the bouncer was still preoccupied with the two fans shouting in his face. See crap, they're almost here. Ryuji blurted, looking at Ann and Izuku. Should we hightail it out of here? Calm down, they're probably only after Pop Step. But we have to warn her before they get here. Ann declared, looking up at the still bouncing idol. I don't want to see her get in trouble. Oh okay. We'll see if we can get her to look at us in the street. Start waving. Izuku told them, the three spreading their arms and waving them as sporadically as possible. At first, Pop Step continued to fall and bounce without taking notice. But as she ascended once again, her eyes trailed to them for a brief moment. Seeing their chance, the gang immediately began to motion to the street, hoping that she would understand what they were trying to say. Pop Step tilted her head in question before following their direction. She descended toward the ground again before bouncing back up. Looking at the three directly, Pop Step gave them a wink of appreciation. Sorry, my wonderful fans. It looks like we'll be cutting this short for today. Thank you all for coming and showing your support. Please try to watch out for my next SHOW. With that announcement, Pop Step bounded against the wall of a building close by, using it to bounce over the top and escape without another word. Hell yeah, we did it. Ryuji cheered, turning to Ann and Izuku and giving them a high five. Good job, team. We helped save Pop Step's career. Ann declared, pumping a fist in the air. We should probably get going too in case the police start questioning the crowd, said Izuku. He glanced back to see the bouncer looking around in confusion as the crowd began dispersing before beginning to take off as well. He then dropped on all fours, but his hands and feet didn't touch the ground, instead hovering a few inches off of it. He suddenly took off, evading the police by swerving through the fleeing crowd. Huh. That's a weird quirk. But hey, at least it helps him get out, Ryuji laughed before pulling Izuku along. This way, we'll cut through the alley. Right. Izuku agreed, following close behind Ryuji and Ann. That was a weird turn of events. Oh, well. It was interesting to see an event like that live, even if illegal. I doubt I'll see them again, though. To be continued. This is the end of the video. If you enjoyed the story, then hit the like button and comment your favorite part, but for now see you all in the next video.